My father put one hand on my brother's shoulder and said, "Go ahead, Ryan, show them what you built." We were standing in the showroom at Ellis Custom Woodworks with 12 people watching and a breakfast station the size of a small apartment folded into the wall behind us. I could still smell the lemon oil I'd rubbed into the walnut trim at 2 that morning. My right thumb was bandaged where a chisel had slipped. Inside the center cabinet, 6 inches from the mechanism I had designed, cut, installed, torn out, and designed again, a new brass plate gleamed under the track lighting. The Ryan Ellis Transforming Service Wall. Ryan smiled at the inn owners. Then he turned toward the cabinet and stared at the 3 recessed handles. He had no idea which one to pull first. For a second, I thought that might be enough, that my father would notice the pause, look at me, and understand everything without making me say it. Instead, Dad laughed proudly. "Don't be shy now, you've been talking about this thing for 6 weeks. Ryan glanced at me. It was the same look he had given me since we were teenagers, affectionate, embarrassed, and completely confident that I would save him. I always had before. 5 weeks earlier, the service wall had been 3 pencil lines on a yellow legal pad, and Ryan was using that pad to keep his beer from leaving a ring on our parents' dining table. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had not changed much in 30 years. Dad carved meat, whether the meat required carving or not. Mom served enough food for a road crew and apologized for every dish. Ryan arrived late with a bottle of wine nobody opened because Dad preferred beer. I cleared plates before I had finished eating because watching the gravy stiffen on them made me anxious. That particular Sunday, Ryan came in wearing a navy blazer over a t-shirt and carrying a white bakery box. "Peace offering," he announced. "You can't call it a peace offering before you've done anything," his wife Tessa said behind him. "That sounds like a lack of imagination." Mom kissed him on both cheeks as if he'd returned from sea instead of driving 12 minutes from the other side of town. "What did you do?" I asked. Ryan set the box near my elbow. "Why does everyone assume I did something?" Tessa took off her coat. Pattern recognition. I liked Tessa. She had a dry voice, an alarming memory, and no interest in participating in Ryan's personal mythology. She also loved him enough to believe that underneath all his shortcuts was a good man trying to get somewhere. I understood that because I'd spent most of my life believing the same thing. Dad carried in a platter with a roast balanced on it. "Mara, move your water." I moved my water. "Ryan, wash your hands." "I'm 40, Dad. And apparently 40-year-old hands repel soap." Ryan gave me a wounded look on his way to the sink. "He doesn't respect me. Use warm water," I called. Dinner began with Mom asking Tessa about a charity auction and Dad complaining that people no longer understood the purpose of a turn signal. Then Ryan tapped his fork against his glass. Dad looked up immediately. "I had a meeting Friday," Ryan said. "You have several of those a week," I said. He ignored me. "With Paul and Nadine Mercer." That got my attention. The Mercers owned the Briar Glen Inn, a 40-room place outside town with old brick, good bourbon and plumbing that had been installed sometime during the Roosevelt administration. They had been talking about renovating their dining room for almost a year. Dad set down his knife. "They're finally doing it? They're ready to move." Ryan leaned back, enjoying the room. New floor, new service flow, whole breakfast operation tucked away by 11 so they can use the space for events. Dad's eyes went bright in the way they used to when he showed me how to match grain across cabinet doors. What kind of budget? Healthy. That's not a number. It's a number with manners. I smiled despite myself. Ryan could make even Dad's suspicion feel like a warm-up act. He pulled the legal pad from under his beer and rotated it toward us. 3 lines made a rectangle. Inside the rectangle, he had drawn several smaller rectangles and something that might have been a coffee maker or a tombstone. "Everything lives in the wall," he said. Then, in the morning, one employee opens it up. Counter slides out here. Appliances behind pocket doors. Storage above. At the end of service, the whole thing disappears. Dad bent closer. A folding counter? More like a transforming counter. "Transforming into what?" I asked. Ryan pointed at the smudged drawing. This. That clears it up. Tessa covered a laugh with her napkin. Dad lifted the paper. You sold this? I sold the concept. Does the concept obey gravity? That's Mara's department. There it was, delivered lightly enough that objecting would make me humorless. Dad handed me the pad. Could it work? I looked at the drawing. Not like this. Ryan tore off a piece of bread. But generally, a lot of things work. The Mercers want a prototype in 6 weeks. 6? Closer to 5.5 now. Dad's expression changed. Not alarm. Calculation. The Briar Glen job would be the largest contract we'd had in over a year, and everybody at the table knew it. Business at the shop wasn't catastrophic. Catastrophic would have been simpler. It was just slow enough to make every decision feel heavier. A hotel order could keep 4 people busy through winter. It could replace the edge bander Dad had been nursing like an elderly pet. It could also go bad in a way people remembered. What did you promise them? I asked. Ryan spread his hands. Walnut exterior, stonework surface, concealed commercial equipment, single-person operation. Stone on a folding counter, sliding. Folding adjacent. That's not a phrase. It was in the room. Dad took the legal pad back. He got them interested. That's the hard part. No, I said. The hard part is keeping a 200-pound surface from falling on somebody's feet. Mom touched my wrist. We haven't even had dessert. She said it gently, but Mom had a gift for making dessert sound like a moral obligation. Ryan reached across and squeezed my other hand. I'm not asking you to solve it tonight, Mars. Only Ryan called me Mars. He'd started when I was 10 and furious that he kept shortening my name to Mare. He claimed Mars was better because it was a planet and a god of war. Years later, when I learned Mars was also cold, dry, and mostly uninhabitable, it felt less flattering. I'm asking you to look at it with me tomorrow, he continued. We do the first design meeting together. Equal partners. Dad watched us. That's what I want to see. There was something in his voice I wanted more than I wanted caution. Dad had founded the shop at 28 with 1 table saw, 2 borrowed clamps, and the sort of confidence that comes from having no backup plan. I had grown up sweeping sawdust into piles while Ryan built swords from scrapwood. After Dad's heart attack, I came home temporarily to help. Temporary became 5 years without anyone formally changing the word. Ryan handled sales. I handled design, fabrication schedules, supplier problems, and any client conversation that began with, I'm sure there's a simple explanation. Dad still introduced Ryan as the future of the business. He introduced me as the reason nothing caught fire. It was supposed to be a joke. After dinner, Mom opened Ryan's bakery box and frowned. These are those little French things. Macarons, Tessa said. I thought those were coconut. That's macaroons. Well, that seems intentionally confusing. Dad bit into a pistachio one and looked offended by the texture. Ryan took a chocolate. Tessa split a raspberry one with me. While Mom wrapped leftovers, Dad called Ryan and me into his small office off the den. He kept business papers there beside tax folders, old catalogs, and a wooden duck Ryan had made in 8th grade shop class. My first dovetailed box had never achieved office status. Dad sat behind the desk. If Briar Glen goes well, it changes things. What things? I asked, though I knew. He looked at Ryan. I can't keep working 60-hour weeks. You don't, I said. Dad's eyebrows rose. You're at the shop 60 hours. Some of those hours are spent telling Lou how men used to sharpen pencils. Lou needs context. Ryan dropped into the chair beside mine. He means he's thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about stepping back, Dad corrected. Different thing. Mom called from the kitchen. It had better be. Dad lowered his voice. This project could show me how you two function with more responsibility. Ryan nodded solemnly, as if the meeting had been called to appoint us to the Supreme Court. What responsibility do you think I don't have now? I asked. Dad rubbed 2 fingers over a scratch in his desk. Don't do that. Do what? Turn everything into a challenge. I almost laughed. Ryan had promised a moving stone counter based on 3 rectangles drawn beneath a beer, and I was the one turning things into a challenge. He leaned forward. "Mara, you're essential. You know that. Essential, steady, dependable." Our family had a whole jewelry box of words that looked valuable until I tried to spend them. Dad continued, "Ryan brings in people. You make ideas real. That's a partnership." "Then why are you looking at him when you talk about stepping back?" Silence settled in the office. Ryan shifted beside me. "Mars." Dad's face tightened, not because I was wrong, but because I had made being wrong inconvenient for him. "This is exactly why the Briar Glen job matters," he said. "It gives both of you a chance to show me something. Can we leave it there tonight?" That was Dad's version of compromise. He placed the problem on a high shelf and asked everyone to admire how clean the floor looked. Ryan stood first. "Absolutely. We'll knock it out." Dad's shoulders loosened. I stayed seated. I haven't agreed. Ryan looked down at me, his expression softer now. "Come on, you heard him. This is our chance. Our chance." He knew where to put the knife, so it felt like a key. The next morning, Ryan arrived at the shop 11 minutes late carrying 2 coffees and a roll of drawings. "Before you say anything," he told me, "I got your order right." I took the cup. "This is yours." He checked the writing on the side, switched cups, and handed me the other one. "I got your order right eventually." The shop was still cold. Sunlight came through the high windows and dusty bars, catching on metal clamps and pale maple boards stacked near the wall. Dad's old radio muttered the weather from beside the drill press. Lou was in back arguing with the dust collector. Ryan spread the drawings across my work table. They were not technical drawings. They were glossy renderings made by the inn's decorator, full of white plates, little plants, and people who apparently ate breakfast without making crumbs. Ryan stood beside me, shoulder touching mine. "Tell me you can see it." I did see it. That was the problem. I saw pocket doors colliding with appliance clearances. I saw steam trapped beneath walnut panels. I saw a stone slab pulling the frame forward every time an employee extended it. I saw the floor at Briar Glen, which sloped almost 3/4 of an inch across the proposed wall. And underneath all of that, I saw what it could become if somebody cared enough to solve it. Ryan watched my face and smiled. "No," I said. "You're doing the thing." "What thing?" "The thing where you say no while mentally rebuilding the entire universe. I'm mentally calculating how fast this kills someone. But after that?" I took a pencil from behind my ear and drew a line where the counterweight would need to sit. Ryan's smile widened. "Don't," I warned him. I didn't say anything. "You're celebrating silently." "I'm supportive silently." I drew a second line, then stopped. "We do this together. Completely. You come to every design session. Done. You learn the mechanism. You don't just learn the sentence you say while pointing at it." He put one hand over his heart. "I will know every screw personally, and my name stays on the project." The joke left his face. "Mara," he said, almost offended. "Of course it does." At the time, that answer felt so easy I was embarrassed I had needed to ask. He meant it for almost 3 days. That Monday, Ryan stayed beside me until after 7 while we sketched the first version of the frame. On Tuesday, he showed up before I did, which was so unusual I checked the parking lot for signs of a gas leak. He had even brought breakfast sandwiches. "Are you dying?" I asked. "Can a man grow?" "Not this quickly. It's medically suspicious." He slid a sandwich across my table. "Egg, cheese. No sausage. That's actually my order. I've entered a new era. By Wednesday, he could explain why the stone surface needed its own structural support instead of riding on standard drawer slides. He still called a load-bearing pivot the spinny piece, but only when he wanted to irritate me. We disagreed without him escaping into his phone. When Dad came over to check on us, Ryan said, "Mara figured out how to keep the frame from racking," before he explained his own idea for concealing the handles. It was such a small thing hearing my name attached to my work while I was standing there, but I carried it home like something fragile. The four of us went to Briar Glen on Thursday morning to take final measurements. Dad insisted on coming even though I had already reminded him twice that the inn's dining room was on the second floor, and the elevator had been temporarily unavailable since 2019. I had a heart attack, Mara. I didn't become a Fabergé egg. You complained last week because your recliner was too far from the remote. That was poor planning. Ryan carried Dad's tool bag up the stairs before Dad could argue. I noticed that, too. Briar Glen had the kind of lobby designed to make wealthy people feel rustic. There were rough beams with no visible splinters, leather chairs nobody had ever spilled coffee on, and an enormous stone fireplace that probably turned on with an app. Nadine Mercer met us at the top of the stairs wearing work boots, black trousers, and a silk scarf. "Glenn, you made it," she said. "You sound surprised. I've met your daughter." Dad glanced at me. "She worries." "She measures," Nadine corrected. "That's why I like her." Paul Mercer came through the dining room doors with Ryan, already laughing at something Ryan had said. Paul was tall, silver-haired, and permanently dressed as if somebody might invite him onto a boat. He had liked Ryan from the first meeting because Ryan spoke fluent, optimistic man. "Mara," Paul said, shaking my hand, "your brother says you're the one who makes his wild ideas possible." I looked at Ryan. He gave me a tiny, triumphant nod, as if to say, "See? That's one description," I said. The dining room had been cleared except for folded tables stacked near the windows. On the north wall, strips of painter's tape marked the outline of the new cabinet. The floor did slope, worse than I remembered. The old building sank toward the east corner with a determination that suggested it had somewhere to be. I set up the laser level while Ryan walked the Mercers through the opening sequence we had discussed. Pocket doors would slide back first. A waist-high counter would come forward on a guided track, supported by a concealed steel frame. The appliances would remain fixed, with ventilation above and electrical connections kept away from the moving parts. "And the stone?" Paul asked. "Engineered stone veneer over an aluminum honeycomb panel," I said. "It'll look solid without weighing as much as your car." Paul's smile faded a little. "We discussed real stone." "You discussed the appearance of real stone," Ryan said smoothly. "Mara's solution gives you that without sacrificing the one-person operation." Nadine crouched beside my tape measure. "Can somebody lean on it?" "Yes," I said. "How much somebody? Are we talking a tired employee or your husband climbing onto it to make a toast?" Paul put a hand to his chest. "Why am I the example?" "Historical data," Nadine said. I liked her immediately. We spent 2 hours measuring outlets, ceiling clearances, and the path employees would take from the kitchen. Nadine asked practical questions. Paul asked whether the walnut could be darker. Ryan moved between them easily, translating my blunt answers into language that made limitations sound like luxuries. At one point, I found him kneeling near the wall, writing down the height of an existing outlet without being asked. "You really are in a new era," I said. He looked up. "Stop acting shocked. It's hurting my confidence. You said your confidence was indestructible. It's indestructible in public. Privately, it's a Victorian woman with a fainting problem." On the drive back, Dad sat in the passenger seat of the company truck while Ryan and I were squeezed behind him with the tool bags. Dad talked about the work we could get if the Mercers showed the service wall to other inn owners. "Restaurants, conference centers," he said. "Maybe assisted living dining rooms, places that need flexible space." "We should build one before we franchise it," I said. Dad pointed toward the windshield as though future contracts were visible in traffic. "You have to think beyond the thing in front of you." "The thing in front of you is a dashboard," Ryan said. "Please keep thinking about it." Dad snorted, which from him was practically a laugh. Then he said, "This could be your signature piece, Ryan." The warmth I had been carrying since Monday cooled so quickly it embarrassed me. Ryan's knee pressed against mine in the cramped back seat. He could have corrected Dad. He had corrected Paul at the inn. I waited. He stared out the window. Dad kept talking. A product like that sets you apart, not just another cabinet shop. I watched telephone poles flick past behind Ryan's reflection. Finally, he said, "It'll be good for all of us." It wasn't nothing. That was part of the problem. Ryan rarely gave me nothing. He gave me just enough to make asking for more feel greedy. At the shop, I built a small test frame from plywood and scrap maple. The first hinge configuration failed before lunch. The second held the weight but pushed the counter out of level. By closing time, the floor around my bench was littered with bolts, shims, and 3 legal pad pages full of numbers. Ryan was supposed to stay. At 4:20, he appeared beside me with his blazer on. "No," I said. "I haven't spoken yet." The blazer spoke. "I need to meet Paul for a drink. You spent all morning with Paul. He wants to introduce me to the renovation consultant. And the frame wants to obey physics. We all have dreams." He picked up the test counter and moved it through its arc. It dipped at the far end exactly the way I had told him it would. "You're close," he said. "That's what people say when they're leaving." "I'll come back." "When?" 7:30. I looked at him. 8, he amended. 8 at the latest. He did not come back at 8. At 8:15, he texted, "Running behind, don't wait." At 8:17, he added, "Great meeting, though." Big possibilities. I stayed until 9:30 because the mechanism was already open on my bench and because I had inherited Dad's inability to leave a problem in pieces. When I finally drove home, the smell of machine oil had soaked into my hair. The next morning, Ryan brought coffee. "This one is yours," he said, setting it beside me. I kept working. He stood there a moment. "The consultant manages 6 hotel projects. That's great. He loved the concept. Did he love the part where you weren't here building it?" Ryan exhaled. "I said I was coming back. You also said 8. The conversation ran long. So did I. He leaned against the table. "What do you want me to say? I want you to stop treating the actual work like something that waits quietly when you leave. I was working. You were drinking with a man who already hired us. I was building the relationship, and I was building the cabinet. That's our division of labor." I put down my pencil. "No. Our agreement was that we were doing this together." His jaw shifted. He looked toward Dad's office, then lowered his voice. "I can't do what you do, Mara." The admission disarmed me more effectively than an apology. He touched the edge of the test frame. "I look at this and see wood and metal. You look at it and see every force moving through it. I know I'm supposed to learn, and I am trying, but if I sit beside you every second, I'm still not going to become you. I'm not asking you to become me. Then what are you asking? To know enough that you don't promise something impossible and leave me to make it possible." He nodded once, eyes on the frame. Fair. Ryan's sincerity had always been real in the moment. That made it more dangerous, not less. He took off his blazer and hung it over a chair. "Show me what failed." I walked him through the hinge problem. He listened, asked 2 good questions, and 1 terrible one. By lunch, we had moved the pivot point and added a temporary counterbalance from an old sash weight Lou found in the back room. Lou watched the plywood counter rise smoothly and grunted. From Lou, that was a standing ovation. Ryan slapped my palm. "Look at us. Don't celebrate. It's ugly. It's a prototype." Ugly means authentic. Dad came out of his office and operated it twice. Better. "Mara moved the pivot," Ryan said. Dad tested the weight with his hand. "You need a cleaner release." "We're working on it," I said. Dad looked at Ryan. "The Mercers call about the preview." Ryan's hand dropped from the counter. "What preview?" I asked. Dad frowned. "The showroom preview. I know what the words mean." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "Paul thought it would be good to bring a few people through before installation." "How many?" "Not many." "When?" "The Friday before delivery?" "That wasn't in the schedule. It's informal. Things don't become faster because you call them informal." Dad looked between us. "They want to see what they're buying." "That's reasonable. They can see it when it's finished." Ryan's voice softened. "It'll be finished." Something in his tone made me reach for the calendar hanging beside my bench. I counted the days, then counted them again. The Friday before delivery is 5 weeks away. Right, our deadline was 6 weeks. Originally, I looked at him. You moved it up? Paul asked if we could. And you said yes before asking me. Ryan rested both hands on the plywood frame we had finally gotten to move. I knew you could do it, he said. That isn't confidence in me, I said. That's you spending my time without asking. Ryan's face tightened. I'm bringing work into the shop, and I'm not a machine you schedule after you sell it. Dad sighed. Nobody called you a machine. Good. Then this should be easy. Tell him he can't change production deadlines without checking with production. Your production now? Ryan asked. I'm the person producing this. I'm also producing it. Lou, who had been sorting bolts 6 feet away, quietly picked up his tray and carried it into the back room. Dad planted both hands on the plywood counter. Enough. Ryan should have checked with you. He didn't. We have 5 weeks. Can it be done? That was how Dad settled disputes. He acknowledged the offense in the smallest possible way, then made practicality responsible for erasing it. Not if the design keeps changing, I said. It won't, Ryan said. Not if you keep leaving. I won't. 3 late nights a week and Saturdays until the prototype is stable. He blinked. 3? You moved the deadline. Dad looked at him. She's right. The fact that Dad said it without hesitation made Ryan agree. Fine. 3 nights and Saturdays. No promises to the Mercers unless we both approve them. Fine. And if something slips, we move the preview. We don't kill ourselves to protect a date you invented. Ryan hesitated just long enough to tell me the answer before he gave it. Agreed. I took the calendar off the wall and drew a box around the preview date. There was an oil stain across the 3rd week that looked like a storm system. Ryan watched me write his name beside Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. You're enjoying that, he said, immensely. For the next week, we behaved like the partnership Dad claimed we already were. Ryan came back after dinner on Monday and helped me build a full-size section of the steel support frame. His welds looked like toothpaste squeezed by an angry person, but they held. On Wednesday, he stayed until 9 while we tested door clearances. Thursday, he called Paul in front of me and refused a request for solid marble trim around the appliance bay. It'll interfere with ventilation, Ryan said into the phone. I held up one finger. And add weight, he added. I gave him a thumbs up. He covered the phone. I feel like a contestant on a game show. Your prize is not setting a hotel on fire. He went back to the call. Paul, the designer, says no. I threw a pencil at him. He dodged it, laughing, then corrected himself. We say no. That was Ryan's particular gift. He could disappoint me and then, with one small turn, make me feel foolish for ever doubting him. I didn't think he planned it. Planning would have required a steadier kind of selfishness. Ryan simply liked whichever version of himself the room reflected back at him. On Friday afternoon, Celia Park walked into the shop carrying a broken drawer front wrapped in a bath towel. Celia and I had worked together at Haldane Architectural Millwork before I came home. She had stayed, become their lead designer, and then left to open a small studio specializing in restoration and custom built-ins. She wore red-framed glasses and kept pencils in her hair even when she wasn't working. Please tell me the towel isn't the antique, I said. The towel is from Target and has suffered enough. She unwrapped a curved walnut drawer front with a split running through the veneer. One side of the carved pull had broken away. Early 20s sideboard, she said. Water damage, veneer lifting, 2 drawers worse than this. Client wants it saved because his mother served every holiday meal off it. Dad came out of his office when he heard a new voice. Celia greeted him, and he inspected the drawer like a doctor being offered an interesting X-ray. Hard to match that veneer, he said. I know someone, Celia replied, looking at me. Dad's mouth flattened by half a degree. Celia noticed everything. She always had. I need the full piece done by the end of next month, she continued. I can handle the case, but the curved fronts need somebody patient. Mara's patient if you ask everybody except her family, Ryan said from behind the cabinet frame. Celia looked him over. You must be Ryan. He put a hand to his chest. My reputation arrives first. Mostly your hair. Ryan checked his reflection in the dark window of the spray booth. Celia offered me the drawer. I can pay $1,800 for the fronts and hardware repair. I need 2 weekends, maybe 3. $1,800 was not life-changing money. It was, however, mine. Not the shop's. Not a bonus that became impossible because cash flow was tight. Not a family favor recorded in invisible ink. I can start next Saturday, I said. Dad looked at the calendar. That's a heavy stretch for Briar Glen. I'll work around it. You'll need the steam box. I know. I'm just saying we're already compressed. Celia leaned against my work table. Is Mara not allowed to take outside work now? Dad smiled, but his eyes didn't. Of course she is. We're all making sacrifices for a major contract. I'm sacrificing 3 evenings and every Saturday, I said. Ryan can sacrifice part of a Saturday without me. Ryan lifted both hands. I'm extremely sacrificial. You left early Tuesday to get your tires rotated. Safety first. Celia's gaze moved between us. I can find somebody else. The sensible thing would have been to let her. Instead, I saw Dad's relief arriving before I had even answered, and that decided it for me. I said, I'll do it. Celia held my eyes for a second, then nodded. I'll have it delivered next Friday. After she left, Dad picked up the towel she had forgotten and folded it into a neat square. You don't have to prove anything, he said. I took a job. You took a job because you thought I didn't want you to. Did you? He set the towel down. I want you focused. So do I. That's why I'm getting paid. Ryan made a low noise that might have been a laugh. Dad pointed the folded towel at him. You stay out of it. Gladly. Dad returned to his office. Ryan waited until the door shut. $1,800 for 3 drawer fronts. And hardware. I'm in the wrong business. We're in the same business. That's devastating. Saturday morning, he arrived only 20 minutes late. I made him rebuild one of his welds while I tested the carriage bearings. By lunch, we had the counter moving out and down in a controlled arc. It wasn't elegant yet, but it no longer felt like a kitchen appliance trying to escape. Ryan stood behind it with his hands on his hips. We should film this. We should make it work twice. It worked once. Lots of disasters begin that way. He opened it again. The left track caught halfway. He looked at me. Don't force it. I wasn't going to. You were making the face. What face? The one men make before breaking something and blaming the manufacturer. He released the handle. I crouched and found a metal shaving wedged in the bearing channel. Ryan sat on the concrete floor beside me. For a while, neither of us spoke. The radio played an old Fleetwood Mac song through static. Somewhere in back, Lou sneezed 3 times, swore, then sneezed again. Ryan picked up the metal shaving. You know, Dad thinks I'm an idiot. I looked at him. Dad thinks everybody's an idiot. Not you. He thinks I'm difficult. That's different. It's not better. He rolled the shaving between his fingers. He talks to you about actual things, materials, measurements, what's going wrong. With me, it's always who I met or what I brought in. He keeps saying I'll take over, but he still checks every estimate I write. He checks mine. Not the same way. There was no performance in his voice. Without clients or Dad watching, he looked tired. Older than 40, though he had made such an event of turning 40 that I had started claiming we weren't related. I know I make jokes, he said. I know I leave you with stuff. But this project matters to me too. Then stay. I am staying. I mean, when it stops being interesting. He looked at the half-open counter. That's what you think of me? I think you like starting things because beginnings make everybody hopeful. He absorbed that without arguing. Then he passed me the shaving. I'm going to finish this one. I wanted to believe him. Worse, I believed he wanted to mean it. Mom appeared at the loading door around 4, carrying a slow cooker wrapped in 2 towels. I brought chili, she announced. Your father said you were both working. Ryan whispered. He called in surveillance. Mom heard him. Your father has no idea I'm here. He's at home reorganizing batteries. She set bowls on a stack of plywood and made us eat at the small table in the break area. Ryan told her about the mechanism. I corrected him twice. The third time, he corrected himself before I could. Mom watched us with a pleased softness that made me uncomfortable. "This is nice," she said. "It's chilly in a room with no heat," Ryan replied. "You know what I mean?" I did. She meant no one was fighting. In our family, peace was often measured by whether I had decided to let something go. She patted my hand. "Your father's proud of you both." "Did he say that?" I asked. "He doesn't have to." Ryan concentrated on his chili. Mom changed the subject to Tessa's charity auction, then asked what time Ryan planned to leave for his trip the following Friday. My spoon stopped halfway to my mouth. Ryan closed his eyes. "What trip?" I asked. Mom looked from him to me. "Oh, it's nothing," Ryan said. "Nothing with luggage?" He put down his bowl. "Tessa and I booked a weekend in Asheville months ago. You're leaving next Friday? Coming back Sunday. That's our second full prototype weekend." "I know. No, I don't think you do." Mom began gathering napkins that did not need gathering. "I'm sure you can work it out." "Tessa already took Friday off," Ryan said. "The hotel's non-refundable. You agreed to Saturdays. I didn't remember the trip when I agreed." "Of course you didn't." His expression hardened. "It's 2 days, Mara. It's Friday through Sunday. We'll work late next week. I'm already working late next week. Then I'll make up the hours when I get back. The cabinet doesn't care when you feel like making up the hours." Mom said my name in a warning tone. Ryan pushed back from the table. "What do you want me to do? Tell my wife our plans don't matter because you made a calendar? You made the deadline, and I'm allowed to have a life." I looked at Mom's slow cooker, the prototype waiting beyond the break room door, and the folded paper in my pocket where I had written the measurements for Celia's sideboard. "So am I said. Ryan stared at me. For once, he didn't have a quick answer. Then his phone rang and Paul Mercer's name lit the screen. Ryan stood, already changing as he answered, irritation smoothing into warmth. "Paul," he said. "Perfect timing." He walked back into the shop. Mom kept her eyes on the bowls. Tessa was really looking forward to that weekend. I folded my napkin in half. "So was I said. "To what?" I looked through the doorway at my brother, one hand resting on the prototype while he laughed with a client, him keeping his word. Mom winced like I'd put something sharp on the table. "He wants to keep his word," she said. "People forget things. Ryan forgets whatever belongs to somebody else. That's not fair." "No, Mom, it's extremely fair. That's why you don't like it." She fitted the lid onto the slow cooker with more force than necessary. "I came here to bring you dinner, not be spoken to like I'm responsible for your brother's calendar. You brought up Tessa's feelings before you asked about mine. I didn't know you had plans. I have a paid project coming in Friday. Even if I didn't, I was promised help." Mom's mouth opened, then closed. Through the doorway, Ryan was still talking to Paul, using his low, confident client voice. Mom glanced toward him. "He's not trying to hurt you." "I know." That answer surprised her. I stood and carried my bowl to the sink. "That doesn't make it less expensive." Mom left without saying goodbye, though she did leave the chili. Ryan's call lasted 20 minutes. By the time he came back, Mom's car was gone and I was measuring the prototype's internal clearance again. "She leave mad?" he asked. "You noticed?" She walked past me carrying a slow cooker like she wanted to throw it. He waited for me to ask about the call. When I didn't, he tapped his phone against his palm. Paul had a thought. "No. You don't know the thought? I know Paul. He wants one warming drawer." I closed my eyes. "Small," Ryan added. "There is no small warming drawer. Physically, there are. Not after you account for heat clearance, ventilation, power, and the steel frame currently occupying the place where you're picturing it. He says the whole point is that one employee can set up breakfast. Warm plates would help. The whole point last week was making it movable. We can do both. You told him yes. It wasn't a question. I told him we'd look at it. That means yes when you say it. He's the client, Mara. And I'm the person who has to cut 6 inches out of a frame we just got working." Ryan's shoulders rose and fell. Okay. I should have asked. Again. I'm saying you're right. And then what? And then we find a way. He said it with such determined cheerfulness that I wanted to push the plywood counter over. Instead, I took a marker and drew a rectangle where the warming drawer would need to go. It intersected the left brace, the counterweight channel, and half the usable storage. Ryan stared at it. That's not ideal. No, but it's very warm. He laughed once before realizing I wasn't going to join him. He stayed late Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I gave him that. He canceled one client dinner and ordered greasy noodles to the shop. We moved the brace, relocated the counterweight, and built a vented enclosure for the drawer. The change created a twist in the frame that only appeared when the counter was fully extended. Ryan saw it before I did on the third test. Left side's dropping, he said. I checked the level. He was right. He looked delighted. I saw a force. Don't make it weird. I'm becoming you. You have to stop moisturizing first. He wiped his hands on his jeans and studied the frame. Diagonal brace? Blocks the pocket door. Cable? Maybe. For the next hour, we worked without speaking much. Ryan's ideas weren't always usable, but they gave me something to push against. At 10:30, we ran a tension cable through the upper cavity and got the drop down to 1/8 of an inch. He stood at the end of the counter while I read the level. Well, better. Better like, do it again, or better like, buy me a bronze statue. Do it again. He opened and closed the counter 4 more times. By the 5th, sweat had darkened his shirt between his shoulder blades. Watching him work made it harder to hold on to a clean version of my anger. He wasn't lazy in the simple way I sometimes wanted him to be. He could work hard. He could care. He could learn. He just treated those things like emergency settings rather than a way to live. Thursday evening, Tessa came to the shop carrying Ryan's overnight bag. She found me inside the cabinet frame tightening a bolt. Only my boots were visible. Please tell me that's Mara, she said. Depends who's asking. A person who brought you a peace offering. I slid out. She held up a paper bag from the Thai place near her office. If there's coconut soup in that, I'll forgive almost anything. There is. Also dumplings. You may have a future in diplomacy. Ryan was in Dad's office finishing a call. Tessa set the food near my work table, then ran her fingers over the full-size walnut door we had temporarily hung on the prototype. This is beautiful. It's a door. It's a very beautiful door. That's how they get you. She smiled, but there was uneasiness behind it. Ryan said the project's been intense. He moved the deadline up. He mentioned that part. Did he mention agreeing to work Saturdays? Tessa looked at the overnight bag. He did, she said carefully. And then, forgetting your trip? He didn't forget. The shop seemed to get quieter, though Lou was still running the planer in back. Tessa folded the top of the paper bag down. He remembered when you made the schedule. He thought he could get enough done before we left. He told me he forgot. I'm sure that was easier. For who? She gave me a tired look. You know the answer. Ryan came out of the office before I could say more. My 2 favorite women, he announced. Dangerous opening, Tessa said. He kissed her, then looked at the food. Is any of that mine? No, we said together. Ryan checked his watch. We need to get on the road. Tomorrow, I said. You said the trip was Friday through Sunday. We're staying near the airport tonight. Our flight's early. So Thursday through Sunday. Technically. Tessa said I told him we could cancel. Ryan turned toward her. We discussed this. We did. I said I wouldn't be upset. You've been looking forward to it for months. So has she. Tessa nodded toward the prototype. Not the same way, obviously. Ryan's expression sharpened. Why am I suddenly being tried in court? You're not. I just don't want to be used as the reason you can't stay. He picked up the overnight bag. I'm not using you. You did with Mara. The intimacy of their discomfort made me look away. It would have been easy to enjoy Tessa proving me right. Instead, I felt like I'd opened a door in somebody else's house and found them arguing in the bedroom. Ryan rubbed his forehead. I have worked every night this week. Because you're leaving, I said. Yes, because adults make adjustments. I looked at the steel frame, at the new warming drawer enclosure, at the cable we still hadn't tested under full weight. What adjustment am I making? He didn't answer. Tessa touched his arm. We can still not go. Ryan's face changed. For 1 second, I saw how trapped he felt between disappointing his wife, disappointing me, and surrendering the version of himself who could keep everyone happy without paying the full price himself. Then he chose the trip. I'll be back Sunday afternoon, he said. We can work Sunday night. He hugged me before he left. I didn't hug him back, but I didn't step away either. Friday morning, Celia's sideboard arrived wrapped in moving blankets. The curved front had separated in 2 places, and one rear leg had been repaired with a nail that looked old enough to vote. I cleared a space near the finishing room and spent my lunch break removing the brass hardware. Dad watched from his office doorway. You're not working on that this weekend, he said. I am. The counter mechanism still isn't stable. I'm aware. Ryan's away. I'm also aware. He came closer, lowering his voice as if Ryan might hear us from the airport. I need you to be realistic. I have 12 hours Saturday and 12 hours Sunday. That's not enough. Then the preview moves. Dad's jaw set. It's one weekend, Mara. It's always one weekend. This contract keeps the whole shop busy, and my job with Celia keeps me paid. We pay you. Less than Haldane paid me 5 years ago. That's not a fair comparison. This is a family business. I set down the screwdriver. What part of that sentence is supposed to make me feel better? Dad picked up one of the tarnished pulls. You know what this shop went through after my heart attack? I was here, I remember. Do you? The question landed harder than I intended. Dad placed the pull beside the others. I remember you walking in here with 2 suitcases and telling me you'd stay until I was steady, and then you made steady my job. His face went still. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The planer started in back, filling the silence for us. Dad turned toward the prototype. I'll come in tomorrow. You don't have to. I know. He arrived at 7 Saturday morning with coffee in a dented metal thermos and the old canvas tool apron he claimed he had retired. Working with Dad used to be the easiest way I knew to love him. He didn't talk much when his hands were busy. He noticed the way a cut sounded. He could run his palm over an edge and find a ridge I couldn't see. By 10, we had rebuilt the cable anchor and added a narrow steel gusset that cleared the pocket door by less than half an inch. Try it, he said. I released the counter. It moved forward, lowered, and settled level. Dad pressed his weight against the outer corner. The frame held. There, he said. Pride lifted in me before I could stop it. Then he added, Ryan's going to have one hell of a piece to show. I stared at the counter. Dad was already reaching for his coffee. We built this, I said. That's what I meant. No, it isn't. He frowned. Mara, don't ruin a good morning. I looked toward Celia's sideboard, still waiting beneath its moving blanket. By Sunday afternoon, the prototype had opened successfully 32 times. I had not touched the sideboard once. Celia called while I was sweeping metal shavings from beneath the frame. How's my patient? She asked. I looked across the shop at the covered walnut case. Waiting. Mara, I'll make up the time. That isn't what I asked. I leaned the broom against my bench. Celia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You know they keep calling you dependable because it sounds nicer than available. My phone buzzed with a message from Ryan before I could answer. It was a photograph of him and Tessa on a restaurant terrace, mountains behind them, Ryan raising a glass toward the camera. Wish you were here, he had written. A second message appeared. Did the counter work? Knew you'd crack it. I stared at the messages until the screen dimmed. What happened? Celia asked. Nothing new. That can still be something bad. I told her about the deadline, the trip, and the warming drawer. I left out Dad's comment about Ryan having a piece to show because saying it aloud would have made it sound exactly as small and ugly as it was. Celia listened without interrupting. I can get to the sideboard next weekend, I said. I believe you. I'll still meet the deadline. I believe that, too. Then why do you sound like you're trying not to yell at me? Because the reason you always meet deadlines is that you treat your own body like an extension cord. I looked down at my hands. A shallow cut crossed my left knuckle. There was graphite under 3 nails and a burn mark on the heel of my palm from grabbing a piece of steel I had forgotten was hot. It's one rough month. Celia sighed. You've been having one rough month since 2021, the year I came home. I leaned against the work table. Do you want the job back? No. I want you to do it. Your work is better than mine on curved veneer, and I'm secure enough to say that. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder that you exist outside this shop. After we hung up, I took the moving blankets off the sideboard. I told myself I would work on it for 1 hour, even if that meant staying later. Then I noticed the prototype's left pocket door rubbing against the new cable housing. I covered the sideboard again. Ryan did not come back Sunday night. At 10:06, he texted that their connecting flight had been delayed and promised to arrive early Monday. At 8:40 Monday morning, he walked in carrying a paper bag of airport candy and wearing the same expression he used whenever he hoped enthusiasm could perform the work of an apology. Saltwater taffy, he announced. We aren't near saltwater. It traveled. So did you. Eventually. He put the bag beside my coffee. Flight was a disaster. Did it ruin your entire weekend? His smile faded. I said I was sorry. You said the flight was delayed. I'm sorry the flight was delayed. I turned away. Come on, Mara. The counter was folded into the prototype. I pulled the pocket doors open and gestured toward it. Show me how it works. He stared at me. Now? You're here. I haven't even taken my coat off. The mechanism doesn't care. He removed his coat slowly and draped it over a chair. All right. At that point, the sequence was straightforward. The upper recessed handle released both pocket doors. Once they were locked open, a small center latch freed the support carriage. The lower handle brought the counter forward and down. 2 interlocks prevented anyone from moving the counter before the doors were secure. Ryan opened the pocket doors correctly. Then he pulled the lower handle before releasing the center latch. Nothing moved. He pulled harder. Don't force it. I'm not. You're making the face. He released the handle and looked at the 3 controls. This one? Do you understand why, or are you guessing? I understand that you want me to feel stupid. No, I want you to know the thing you're selling. He released the center latch, then pulled the counter forward. The frame glided down and settled level. His irritation gave way to honest surprise. That's smooth. It worked yesterday, too. Dad helped? Dad stood beside me for 5 hours and then called it your piece. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. He didn't mean it like that. You weren't there, which is why I'm not going to interpret a conversation I didn't hear. That's convenient. He looked at the open counter and ran one hand over the edge. You did an amazing job. The praise landed badly. I did the job you said we were doing together. I worked on this. You did. Then you left. For one weekend, the weekend it started working. He leaned against the frame. What do you want, Mara? I can't go back and not take the trip. I want next Saturday. For what? The sideboard. You work on Briar Glen. I work on my own project. He hesitated. Ryan, I'm thinking. That's a no with furniture. Tessa's auction is Saturday night. I told her I'd help set up in the afternoon, then work early. I can do that, 7 o'clock. He grimaced. In the morning? No, Ryan, 7 at night, and then you can travel backward. He agreed to 7. That afternoon, Nadine Mercer came to inspect the walnut samples and brought her interior designer, a narrow woman named Brooke, who wore cream-colored clothing in a woodshop without displaying a trace of fear. Ryan led them to the prototype. He explained the moving frame accurately until Brooke asked about load distribution. Then he looked at me. Mara can give you the interesting answer, he said. The interesting answer is that the support transfers through 2 steel uprights into a reinforced base. I explained. The building floor isn't level enough to carry the moving load consistently, so the entire unit gets leveled independently. Nadine ran her hand beneath the extended counter. And this works with one person? I opened and closed it for her. Brooke watched the cable tension as the frame moved. That's clever. I felt Ryan beside me before he spoke. We went through 4 versions, he said. 5, but I didn't correct him. Nadine asked if the handles could be less visible. The 3 temporary pulls were matte black and easy to distinguish. Brooke wanted recessed walnut grips that disappeared into the millwork. They need to be identifiable, I said. There's an order. Could the order be intuitive? Brooke asked. It is if the controls are visible. Ryan touched the upper handle. What if all 3 are inset and we make the shapes different? Wide grip for the doors, round release in the center, long grip for the counter. That was a good idea. I hated that some part of me had been waiting for one. It could work, I said. Brooke smiled. That would be much cleaner. Nadine looked at me. As long as you're comfortable with it, I'll build a test set. As they walked away with Ryan, I heard Nadine say, Your sister really knows her stuff. Ryan answered, She's the best. Again, just enough. The recessed handles cost us 2 days. Each one had to be shaped, sanded, and fitted, so it read under the hand even if it disappeared to the eye. I carved a shallow crescent into the door release, made the center latch a circular depression, and routed a long, horizontal grip for the counter. Ryan practiced the new sequence Wednesday night. He got it right twice, wrong once, then right again. See, he said, I'm trainable. You open 3 doors. One of them turns into a counter. Dad scheduled the preview from 11 to 1 on Friday. Paul was bringing Nadine, 2 employees, the renovation consultant, and another inn-owner. Dad invited 3 longtime clients and a retired builder who had referred us work for years. Why? I asked when I saw the list. Because people buy what they can see. They can see it after the Mercers approve it. He's proud of the project, Ryan said. Dad pointed at him. And you need to be ready to talk about more than the concept. They'll ask how it operates. I know how it operates. Show me. Ryan laughed. Right now? Dad crossed his arms. Ryan opened the doors, pressed the center release, and brought the counter down perfectly. He made a small flourish at the end. Dad nodded. Good. I wanted Dad to ask who had designed the interlocks, or solved the floor load, or stayed while his son flew to the mountains. Instead, he told Ryan to wear the gray jacket because the blue one looked too much like he was selling cars. On Saturday, Ryan arrived at 7:20 with breakfast sandwiches. I'm early by cultural standards, he said. Whose culture? Mine. I set him to work fitting the appliance panels while I uncovered Celia's sideboard. The damage was worse than the drawer front had suggested. Moisture had loosened a broad sheet of veneer along one curved corner. I warmed the old glue carefully, lifted the veneer without cracking it, and started cleaning the substrate. For 3 hours, I disappeared into work that belonged only to me. No sales language, no shifting promises. Just old walnut, hide glue, and the quiet problem of preserving something that could not be replaced. At 11, Ryan came over holding a panel. You look happy, he said. I am. He seemed surprised. Then his phone buzzed. He read the message and set down the panel. Tessa needs me at the hotel by noon. You said afternoon. This is afternoon adjacent. Nothing is adjacent with you. It either is or it isn't. They moved vendor setup. You promised me the morning. It is the morning. Barely. He looked at the sideboard. You're working on your thing. Because you were supposed to handle ours. Our thing is on schedule. Because I gave up last weekend. His expression sharpened. Do you want me to miss something important to my wife? I scraped glue from the curved wood in slow, even strokes. I want you to stop making me choose between being reasonable and being used. He stood there for a moment. Then he carried the panel back to the cabinet, installed it, and left at 12:10 without saying goodbye. Celia arrived half an hour later with replacement veneer and found me moving toward the prototype. No, she said. I need to check his panel. Did he install it with an axe? No. Then it can wait. She put herself between me and the cabinet, which would have been funny if she weren't 5'3" and completely serious. 2 hours, she said. You work on the sideboard. I'll help. You don't have to. I know. That's what makes it help. We worked until 3. Celia showed me a better way to soften the old adhesive without staining the surrounding walnut. I repaired the carved pull and fitted a Dutchman patch beneath the damaged veneer. When we finished, the curve held under my palm without a hollow spot. There, she said. Your work. Remember that feeling? I did. It lasted until Monday morning when I saw the presentation board leaning against Dad's office wall. Across the top was a glossy rendering of the service wall. Beneath it were 3 photographs Ryan had taken during the prototype tests. There was a paragraph describing the transforming mechanism using sentences I had written for his technical notes. At the bottom, in clean black lettering, it said, Concept and Design, Ryan Ellis. I carried the board across the shop and set it on Ryan's desk. What is this? He looked at it, then at me. The preview board. I can see that. The printer used an old file. An old file from when? It's a template, Mara. My description is on it. I sent them everybody's material. My description of my mechanism under your name. He stood. I didn't make the board. You approved it. The final proof came through while we were at the auction. Then fix it. He looked toward Dad's office. Ryan. I will. To say what? Ellis Custom Woodworks. And our names? He rubbed his jaw. Does it need individual names? It needed yours yesterday. He had no answer for that. I pushed the board closer to him. Fix it before Friday. I said I would. His tone made the request sound petty. I left before I said something that would let him turn the conversation into a discussion of my temper. Thursday night, the board returned from the printer. The bottom now read, Designed and built by Ellis Custom Woodworks. It wasn't credit, but it was accurate enough that fighting about it would have required me to explain why accuracy still felt like erasure. I told myself the work would speak when people saw it move. At 7:12 Friday morning, I walked into the showroom and found Ryan kneeling inside the center cabinet with a screwdriver. What are you doing? He shifted aside. A brass plate had been fastened beneath the center latch, polished brightly enough to catch my reflection. The Ryan Ellis Transforming Service Wall. My bandaged thumb throbbed as I reached for the plate. Ryan caught my wrist before I touched it. Don't. I looked down at his hand until he let go. What did you do? It's branding. It's your name. Yes, that's generally how names work. The plate sat 6 inches below the round center release, attached with 4 brass screws. It hadn't been there when I finished rubbing lemon oil into the walnut at 2 that morning. Neither had Ryan. He had left at 10 after promising to come back with food, then texted that he needed sleep if he was going to be sharp for the preview. I had been carving a replacement grip when the chisel slipped and opened my right thumb along the side. Lou, who had come back for a jacket, found me bleeding into a shop towel and drove me to the 24-hour pharmacy for bandages. He also bought me a lemon sports drink and said, for blood, which wasn't medically sound but was more concern than anyone else had shown. Now Ryan was kneeling in front of work he hadn't touched since Wednesday, putting his signature on it. Take it off, I said. He stood. Mara. Take it off. It's the product name. No, the product name was the Briar Glen Transforming Service Wall. That's a description, not a name. You named it after yourself. Dad and I talked about creating a line. If the consultant likes it, we can pitch versions to other properties. So you had this made before the prototype even worked? It takes a few days to engrave brass. I laughed because the other option was throwing his screwdriver through the showroom window. Ryan glanced toward the shop door. Can we not do this at 7 in the morning? You picked 7 in the morning. That's when you installed it. The Mercers will be here in less than 4 hours. Then you should hurry. There are only 4 screws. I reached for the screwdriver. He picked it up first. Dad came in through the office hallway carrying 2 garment bags. What's going on? Nothing. Ryan said. The cabinet named itself, I said. Dad put the garment bags over the back of a chair. He walked to the prototype and read the plate. Looks good. I stared at him. He ran a thumb over one corner. Should have countersunk these a little deeper. That's your concern? Dad's eyes moved to my bandage. What happened to your hand? I cut it, finishing Ryan's wall. Don't start. I didn't. Apparently, Ryan did everything. Ryan stepped between us, palms out. Nobody said that. The plate says that. It's a product name. Dad shook his head as if we were arguing about paint colors. Ryan brought in the idea and sold the project. The name gives it a face. I brought in the design. I built the project. What does that give it? Mara. Everybody knows you did the fabrication. Who's everybody? We do. That's convenient. So no one else has to. Dad's jaw tightened. Your brother represents the company. That's part of his job. And disappearing into the company is part of mine? Ryan groaned. This is why I didn't tell you in advance. That sentence isn't helping you. Dad pointed toward the showroom doors. Clients are coming. We are not doing this today. You did it today. I approved a nameplate. You approved his name on my work. Our work, Ryan said. I turned on him. When you were in Asheville, was it our work? Yes. When I was here with Dad rebuilding the support, was it our work? Yes. When I gave up my paid weekend and you left for an auction, was that our work? He stepped closer. I put work into this. I know. That's what makes this worse. You could have taken credit for your part. You chose mine. Mom entered carrying a tray covered with foil. She stopped when she saw us. No, she said immediately. No one had explained anything, but she knew our positions. Ryan near the cabinet, Dad beside him, me across from both. What now? She asked. I pointed to the plate. Mom read it. Her face flickered. Denise, Dad warned. She adjusted the foil around the tray. Maybe this isn't the morning to discuss it. It wasn't the morning to install it. People will be here soon. Why does that matter? Because this is important to your father. I waited. Mom looked at me, then away. And to the business. There it was again. Ryan's feelings had names. Dad's pride had a name. The business had a payroll, a history, a future. What I wanted became a disturbance in the room, something impolite people could sense, but decent people didn't mention. Ryan lowered his voice. After the preview, we'll talk about adding your name. Adding it where? On the plate. Under yours? Beside mine. What would it say? The Ryan Ellis Transforming Service Wall, with assistance from the woman who made it transform? Mom set the tray down. Mara, please. Her voice was so tired that guilt reached for me automatically. I looked at the wall clock. 7:24. The showroom still needed chairs. The counter surface needed polishing. One pocket door had picked up a fingerprint in the oil. The Mercers were bringing people who had no idea they were walking into a family argument and probably didn't care. That had always been the trap. There was always something real at stake around the thing Ryan did. A client, payroll, Dad's health, Mom's nerves. If I refused to absorb the damage, it spread to people who hadn't caused it. Leave it, I said. Ryan's shoulders dropped. Just for today, he said. I didn't answer. Tessa arrived at 10:30 in a black dress and boots, carrying a box of pastries from the same bakery Ryan had brought to Sunday dinner weeks earlier. She kissed his cheek, hugged Mom, and stopped in front of the cabinet. She read the plate twice. You named it after yourself? It's branding, Ryan said. Tessa looked at me. I was aligning coffee cups on the refreshment table because apparently humiliation required matching saucers. Did Mara agree to that? She asked. Ryan's smile hardened. We've covered it. That wasn't my question. Tess. She put the pastry box down. I'm going to help Denise. As she passed me, she touched my elbow. I didn't know, she said quietly. I believed her. By 11, the showroom smelled like coffee, pastries, fresh walnut, and the lemon oil still trapped in my sleeves. Dad wore a charcoal suit that made him look broader than he was. Ryan chose the gray jacket. Mom had arranged small plates in a fan and was telling Nadine Mercer that the rug near the entrance curled up when the weather changed. Paul arrived with a renovation consultant and another inn owner named Stephen. Brooke came in behind them, wearing cream again. Lou had changed into a collared shirt but refused to remove his work boots. 3 of Dad's longtime clients stood near the windows, admiring the joinery and asking each other questions Ryan answered before I could. 12 people, not counting us. Ryan moved through them easily. He remembered names, touched shoulders, laughed at the correct volume. When Stephen asked where the idea came from, Ryan said, "We wanted to solve the problem of a room that works hard for 3 hours and then sits useless all day. The word no longer sounded generous. Nadine found me beside the cabinet. "You look exhausted," she said. "That's the lighting. It's flattering to everyone else." I smiled. She glanced at my thumb. "Occupational hazard? Something like that. I want you to know Paul loves the piece. He's already talking about ordering a smaller version for the private dining room. That's good. You don't sound pleased. I'd like this one to survive breakfast first." She studied me, then looked toward Ryan and the brass plate. She didn't ask, but I saw her understand enough to become uncomfortable. Dad called everyone closer. He began with the story of the shop, how he had started with borrowed clamps, and how custom work was not about making cabinets, but solving the way people lived. I had heard versions of the speech at trade breakfasts, retirement dinners, and once at a funeral where it had not fit nearly as well as he thought. Then he turned toward Ryan. "This project came to us because my son saw what the Mercers needed and had the nerve to promise we could make it. Some people see a wall. Ryan sees an opportunity." Applause moved politely through the room. I stood near the refreshment table, my hands wrapped around each other. Dad placed one hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Go ahead, Ryan. Show them what you built." Ryan smiled at the group. Then he faced the cabinet and looked at the 3 recessed handles. His eyes moved from the crescent grip to the round release to the long lower pull. He looked at me. That old request passed between us without words. I stayed where I was. Ryan cleared his throat. "The entire station is designed for one-person operation." He pulled the long lower grip. Nothing moved. "Safety feature," he said, smiling. "It won't open out of sequence." A few people laughed. He moved to the crescent grip and slid the pocket doors back. The right door clicked into position. The left stopped a fraction of an inch short. I saw it. He didn't. He pressed the round release. The interlock held. Ryan pressed harder. "Don't force it," I said, too quietly. He twisted his fingers inside the recessed circle and shoved. The wooden cover flexed. Beneath it, the safety pin scraped against the unlocked door bracket. Dad glanced at me. "Mara, give him a hand." Every person in the room turned toward me. I could have crossed the distance in 4 steps. I could have pushed the left door until it clicked, released the center latch, and opened the counter so smoothly that everyone would have forgotten the pause. Instead, I said, "Ryan designed it. Let him explain how it works." Ryan's face went red. "Mara," Dad said. Ryan yanked the center release. The safety pin sheared with a sharp metallic crack. The counter dropped 4 inches onto the secondary stop, tilting hard enough to send 3 display cups sliding across the surface. One hit the floor and shattered. Mom gasped. Paul stepped backward. Brooke caught the edge of the counter but let go when I told her not to touch it. No one was hurt. The silence made it feel otherwise. Nadine looked at Ryan. What failed? Ryan stared into the cabinet. "The release caught," he said. "On what?" He crouched, pretending to inspect parts he could not name. Dad turned to me. "Can you secure it?" "Yes." "Then do it." I walked over, engaged the manual support, and pinned the counter in place. Ryan moved aside without looking at me. Paul asked, "Is this a design problem?" "No," Ryan said quickly. "Mara helped with the engineering. She can explain." I stood up. "I didn't help with the engineering," I said. "I designed and built the mechanism after Ryan left it unfinished." Nobody moved. Dad's voice went low. "That's enough." Nadine looked from me to the brass plate. It suddenly seemed brighter than anything else in the room. Paul cleared his throat. "We should postpone approval until we understand what happened." "Of course," Dad said. "We'll have it corrected by Monday." The gathering ended in careful fragments. People found coats, avoided my eyes, and thanked Mom for pastries they had not eaten. Nadine squeezed my arm before she left. Paul did not shake Ryan's hand. When the doors closed behind the last guest, Dad turned the lock. Mom stood near the broken cup with a dustpan. Tessa remained beside the coffee table. Ryan was still crouched in front of the cabinet, staring at the sheared pin. Dad looked at me with a fury so cold it steadied my breathing. "You knew that would happen. I knew forcing it would break it. And you let him. I told him not to force it. You could have stopped this." Ryan stood. She wanted it to fail. I looked at him. His face was pale beneath the anger. "You stood there and watched me." "Yes," Mom whispered. "Mara." Dad pointed at the damaged mechanism. "You will fix this by Monday morning." The brass plate had come loose at one corner. Ryan's name hung slightly crooked over the broken release. I looked at Dad. "No," I said. Dad blinked as if the word had come from somewhere behind me. "What did you say?" "I said no. You're angry." "I understand that." "No, you understand that I'm usually angry for 10 minutes and useful again by 11. Ryan let out a humorless laugh. "Useful? Is that what you call what happened here?" Tessa turned toward him. "What do you call putting your name on something you can't operate?" "Tess, stay out of it. You installed the plate this morning. You made me part of it when you lied to me." "I didn't lie to you. You said it was a product name you and Mara agreed on." He looked at me. "I said we discussed branding. You said she agreed." Mom set the dustpan on the refreshment table. A white ceramic shard slid off and clicked against a saucer. "Can everybody stop?" she asked. "Just stop for 1 minute." Dad kept his eyes on me. "The Mercers are expecting this fixed. Then Ryan should fix it." "You know he can't." The words came out before Dad could catch them. Ryan's face changed. Dad looked away first. "Not by Monday. Then it's lucky his name is already on it." "This isn't funny. I don't think any of this is funny." Dad stepped closer. 4 people in that shop are counting on this contract. Paul could pull the entire order. He could tell every hotel owner he knows that we built something dangerous. We built 2 safety systems. Ryan broke the first because he didn't know the sequence. The second caught the counter. And whose fault is it that he didn't know? I stared at him. "You can't be serious. You built the mechanism. Part of your job is making sure the client-facing person can demonstrate it. I showed him. I made him practice. I told him not to force it in front of everyone. You saw the door wasn't locked. So did he, if he understood what he was demonstrating." Ryan kicked the leg of a folding chair. It scraped across the floor. "You wanted me to look stupid," he said. "I wanted you to look like exactly as much as you did. What does that even mean? It means I stopped adding my competence to yours." His mouth tightened. "You think you're better than me?" "No, I think I'm better at this than you." The distinction struck him harder than an insult would have. Mom moved between us. "You are brother and sister. Listen to yourselves. That didn't seem to matter when his name went on my work." "We can change the plate," she said quickly. Ryan said that, put both names on it. I looked at the damaged cabinet. That was never the whole problem. "Then tell us what the problem is." "I have. For years." Mom's eyes filled, and that nearly undid me. She wasn't pretending. She truly believed she had spent years holding us together. She remembered every birthday, stocked my father's medication, sent food home with me, and made sure no disagreement lasted long enough to alter the family. In her mind, that was love. In mine, it was how nothing ever changed. Dad picked up the dustpan and dumped the broken ceramic into the trash. "We don't have time for this today. Go home. Cool off. Be back tomorrow at 7. I'm not coming tomorrow. Mara, I'm not fixing the service wall. He stared at me with the patience he used on employees about to make a stupid decision. If you leave this shop with the project in this condition, don't expect me to pretend it's professional. If I stay, don't expect me to pretend I'm family. Dad's face lost color. I wished I could take the sentence back. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was, and I had wanted him to understand without being wounded by it. That was another habit I had mistaken for kindness. I walked into the shop. Behind me, Mom said my name. Ryan said something to Tessa in a low voice. Dad did not follow. My tools were mixed through the building after 5 years. I owned the Japanese chisels in the drawer beneath my bench, the block plane with the rosewood cap, 2 measuring tapes, my cordless drill, and most of the small clamps Ryan borrowed without returning. Dad owned the table saw, the joiner, the big rooters, and the ancient drill press that rattled at certain speeds. I took only what was mine. Lou came out of the finishing room while I was fitting the chisels into their canvas roll. "What are you doing? Leaving? For lunch?" "No." He glanced toward the showroom. "Ah." That was all he said at first. He helped me find 3 clamps, one of which was holding a scrap jig beneath Ryan's work table. Then he brought me a red-handled awl I had forgotten was mine. "You bought this the week you came back," he said. "You remember? You said your father's awl was older than electricity. It might be." Lou put it in my toolbox. "You want help carrying?" "I've got it." "I know." He carried the heavier box anyway. At my desk, I opened the bottom drawer and found 5 years of objects I hadn't meant to keep. A dried-out paint marker, a hotel key card from a trade show, birthday candles Mom had stuck into a donut one year, a photograph of Ryan asleep under a drafting table after we worked through the night on a restaurant installation. In the picture, I had placed a paper crown on his head. I left the photograph in the drawer. Dad was waiting by the loading door when Lou and I carried out the second box. "You're making a scene," he said. "No." The scene was in the showroom. "You walk out now, you're walking out on the business." "I'm resigning." Mom gasped behind him. Ryan stood farther back with his arms folded. Tessa had her coat on, but she had not left. Dad looked at the toolbox, then at me. "You're not thinking clearly. For the first time in years, I'm only thinking about what belongs to me. And what happens Monday? I don't know. You do know. You know exactly what happens if we lose the Mercers. Then ask the designer whose name is on it." Ryan looked away. Dad lowered his voice. "I am asking my daughter." "No, you're asking your backup." I took the shop keys from my pocket. The ring held the front door key, office key, finishing room key, and the small brass key to Dad's file cabinet because he constantly misplaced his. I slid them off my personal ring and placed them in his palm. His fingers closed automatically. "Mara," he said. For 1 second, he didn't sound like my boss or the founder of the shop. He sounded like the man who had taught me to make a square line with a dull pencil. The man who used to lift me onto a stool so I could see the grain change under varnish. That was the worst part. I didn't stop loving him when I stopped obeying him. "I can secure the counter before I go," I said. "It shouldn't stay under load." Hope moved across his face too quickly. "I'm not repairing it. I'm making it safe." He nodded once. I removed the warming drawer and the stone-faced panel, blocked the carriage, and marked the damage release so no one would operate it by mistake. Ryan watched without speaking. When I finished, I handed him the sheared pin. "This failed because you forced the release while the left door was unlocked. I know that now. You knew it when I told you not to force it." He closed his fist around the pin. I waited for an apology. Even then, some part of me waited. He said, "You didn't have to humiliate me." I picked up my bag. "No," I said, "I just didn't have to protect you." Mom followed me into the parking lot. Cold air moved through the open loading bay, carrying the smell of sawdust outside. Lou had put my boxes in the back of my car and gone in without saying goodbye. I appreciated him for it. Mom hugged her cardigan closed. "Don't make this permanent." "I didn't make it anything. Your father says terrible things when he's scared. So does everybody. He's under pressure. His health, no." She stopped. You don't get to use his heart every time mine becomes inconvenient. That's not what I'm doing. I came home because he had a heart attack. I stayed because every month there was another reason leaving would hurt him. When does that debt end? You don't owe us a debt. Then why do you talk like I'm taking something from you? Mom's eyes filled again. Because we need you. The honesty of it left us both quiet. She reached for my hand, careful of the bandage. Is it so awful to be needed? No. It's awful to only be noticed when I stop. I got into my car before she could answer. At home, I put the toolboxes in the middle of my living room because I had nowhere else for them. My apartment had always been arranged around the assumption that most of my life happened at the shop. A narrow couch, a small dining table covered in mail, 2 plants, one alive through luck and the other through spite. I sat on the floor beside my chisels until the light outside went gray. At 6:30, Ryan texted, "Dad's losing it. Please just come tomorrow and help us assess. At 6:42, you don't have to do the repair. Just tell us what needs replacing. At 7:10, this is bigger than you and me." I turned the phone face down. At 8, Celia called. I told her I had left the shop. "Left for the night?" she asked. "Left?" She was silent long enough that I checked the screen. "Do you need somewhere to put your tools?" she asked. The question was so practical that I almost cried. I need somewhere to put myself. I have half a bay behind my finishing room. It's ugly, and the heater makes a noise like a goose being murdered. I can't afford much. Good, because it isn't worth much. We'll discuss rent like adults. Not family, adults. Sunday morning, she helped me carry my boxes into the bay. It had one high window, a scarred workbench, and exactly enough floor space for the sideboard. My phone rang while we were unwrapping it. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, Ryan called. I let that go too. Then a photograph appeared in our family group text. The service wall was open, the counter propped crookedly on blocks. The center release had been removed. Tools were scattered across the surface. Ryan wrote, "Which cable controls the left interlock?" I looked at the image until I could feel the answer forming automatically in my hands. Then I set the phone aside and reached for the sideboard. Celia watched me press the new veneer into place. "You're doing that too hard," she said. "I'm not. The wood has confessed to crimes it didn't commit." I loosened the clamp by a quarter turn. "There. You're enjoying this." "A little." The sideboard occupied most of the bay, leaving us a narrow path between its curved front and the scarred workbench. Celia's studio was quieter than Dad's shop. No radio, no phones ringing from the office, no one calling my name from another room because they needed to know where we kept something that had been in the same drawer for 9 years. The heater started with a metallic cough, then produced the strangled goose sound Celia had promised. "You undersold it," I said. "It gets worse in February." She pulled a folding chair from beneath the bench and sat backward on it. "Rent is $450 a month. That includes electricity, basic machine access, and coffee if you're willing to lower your standards. That's too low. It's half a bay. It's in a functioning shop. It's beside my finishing room, which means you also get fumes and unsolicited opinions. I don't want a sympathy rate." "Good. I don't offer them." She handed me a 1-page rental agreement. It was simple. Month to month, shared access to the large equipment, replacement costs if I damaged anything, 30 days notice. No promises disguised as favors. No vague future reckoning. I read it twice. "You can think about it," she said. I signed. My savings could cover 6 months of rent if I stopped buying anything enjoyable and became mysteriously immune to car repairs. Health insurance was a worse problem. So was the fact that I had no active clients beyond the sideboard and a woman who had once asked if I could shorten 4 bar stools. I paid Celia the first month anyway. Monday morning, I woke at 6 out of habit. For several seconds, I lay in bed, mentally arranging the shop schedule. Lou needed the maple doors off the clamps. The Briar Glen counter had to be unloaded before anyone adjusted the cable. Ryan would forget to confirm the warming drawer dimensions. Then I remembered none of those things belonged to me. The relief felt enough like panic that I couldn't tell them apart. Dad's first voicemail arrived at 6:15. "Mara, we need the final frame measurements. Call me." At 6:40, "The drawings on the server don't show the revised cable route. If you save them somewhere else, tell Ryan." At 7:10, "This is childish. Mom called at 7:12 and did not leave a message." Ryan texted a photograph of a pencil sketch. He had drawn the left cable routing incorrectly but not dangerously. I put my phone in the kitchen drawer and took a shower. By 9, I was in Celia's bay fitting the repaired drawer front. The old walnut had darkened unevenly, so every patch had to disappear without making the piece look newly manufactured. Restoring furniture was less about making damage vanish than deciding which evidence of time deserved to remain. Celia leaned through the doorway around noon. "Lunch. I'm not hungry." That wasn't a question. We ate dumplings at her desk while she reviewed estimates on her computer. I tried not to look at my phone. "You need business insurance," she said. "I know. And a sales tax registration. I know. And a separate account." "I know." "You have the face." "What face?" "The one where useful information sounds like criticism because your father usually delivers both in the same package." I ate another dumpling. Celia opened a spreadsheet and turned the monitor toward me. "I have 3 small jobs I can subcontract if you want them. A built-in desk adjustment, 2 replacement doors, and a dining table with a split top. I don't want charity. They're jobs I don't have time to do. Would you offer them if I still worked for Dad?" "Yes." "You would say no because the shop needed you." That was probably true. "What do they pay?" She smiled. There she is. Ryan arrived at 5:30 wearing work clothes instead of a blazer. There was grease on his cheek and a tear near one knee of his jeans. He stood in the open bay and looked at the sideboard. "So this is where you are." "You called Celia?" "I called 4 times. That isn't an answer." He held up his hands. "Lou told me." I made a note to ask Lou not to give out my location, then felt ridiculous. Celia's studio wasn't a safe house. I had not escaped a criminal organization. I had quit a cabinet shop. Ryan looked around the narrow bay. "It's small. It's mine for $450 a month." His expression shifted. Money made the situation real in a way anger hadn't. "You signed a lease?" "Month to month." "Mara, come on. You came here for something." He pulled the sheared safety pin from his pocket and set it on the workbench. "We replaced this." "With what?" "Same diameter stainless pin." "What grade?" He stared at me. "You don't know. Dad ordered it." "Then Dad should know." "We installed it, but the left interlock still won't release consistently." I turned back to the drawer. Ryan waited. "The cable has too much tension. Maybe. Or the bracket's out of alignment." "Maybe. Can you please stop doing that?" "Doing what?" "Pretending you don't know." "I can't diagnose a moving frame from your description." "Then come look at it." "No." His jaw worked. "I'm not asking you to fix it. You drove here with the broken part in your pocket. I'm asking you to tell us what we did wrong. That is fixing it. We're going to lose the contract. I know. Lou's worried about hours. Vic asked Dad if he should hold off ordering material for the next kitchen. This isn't just about me. No, it's also about Dad and the business. Somehow, it's never about me. It can be about you, too. That's the same trick with nicer wording." He looked at the sideboard. "You left all of us scrambling so you could repair furniture. I left because you put your name on work you couldn't demonstrate. I took the plate off after it embarrassed you. What was I supposed to do, leave it there? I don't care what you do with the plate. That's not true. You care so much you let the project break." I set down the drawer. I stayed until 2 in the morning finishing that wall. I cut my hand. I gave up my work for yours. I asked for one thing, that my name stay attached to what I did. You removed it from the board and installed yours in brass. Then you looked at me in front of everyone and expected me to make that lie work. I panicked. You relied on me. That's different." He looked tired enough that I almost softened. Then he said, "Dad's barely slept." There it was. The family alarm system, wired directly to me. I'm sorry he's upset. That's cold. It's accurate. Ryan shoved the safety pin back into his pocket. Fine. Enjoy your little bay. He turned to leave. Take the stone panel off before you adjust the cable, I said. He stopped. The carriage has to be unloaded, I continued, and block both sides independently. Don't trust the secondary stop after the impact. He looked over his shoulder. Anything else? Yes. Don't change the cable tension until you verify the left door bracket is square. If it's shifted when you force the release, more tension will make it worse. Ryan nodded slowly. I hated that relief showed on his face. That's all I'm giving you, I said. Right. He left without thanking me. At 7, Mom appeared with a container of chicken and rice. I stared at it. Not chili, she said. Good distinction. She set the container on the workbench. Unlike Ryan, she didn't comment on the size of the bay. She walked around the sideboard, touched the repaired curve, and told me it was beautiful. Then she sat in the folding chair and folded her purse over her knees. Your father isn't sleeping. So, Ryan said. He feels betrayed. So do I. Mom looked down at her purse. He shouldn't have put Ryan's name on it. I waited, almost afraid to move. She continued, but what happened Friday was painful for everyone. The hope in me folded itself back up. I'm not discussing Friday if the sentence always ends with everyone. You embarrassed your brother. He embarrassed himself. You could have helped. I could have kept helping forever. Mom's mouth trembled. Why does everything have to become forever with you? Because every time I object to one thing, you ask me to let it go. Forever is what all those one things become. She looked toward the open studio, where Celia was sweeping near the front windows. Come to dinner Sunday. I'm not ready. Ryan won't be there. That doesn't make it better. Your father wants to talk. Then he can call and apologize. Mom's eyebrows rose. Dad did not apologize on demand. In our house, apologies occurred naturally after enough time had passed that no one could remember their wording. He may not know how, she said. He knows how to quote a $60,000 cabinet package. He can find the words. Mom stood. She left the food, even when I asked her to take it. On Wednesday, I finished the sideboard fronts. Celia ran her fingers over the repaired veneer, inspected the color under 3 different lights, and told me to invoice her. I'm not done with the hardware. Invoice the completed phase. I can wait. Why? It's simpler. For who? I had no answer. She made me create an invoice at her desk. My first total came in $300 below our agreement because I had deducted time spent correcting an unexpected split. Celia looked at the number. Did you cause the split? No. Was repairing it part of the job? Yes. Then why are you paying for it? I changed the invoice. Friday afternoon, Nadine Mercer called. I got your number from the original measurement email, she said. I hope that's all right. Yes. Glenn says the failure was caused by a damaged pin and that the design is sound. I want to hear that from you. I looked at the sideboard's polished brass pulls lined up on a cloth. The design is sound if it's built and operated correctly. Would you come inspect the repair? No. She was quiet. I'm no longer with Ellis Custom Woodworks, I said. I heard. If I inspect it, I become responsible for work I didn't perform. I won't do that. That's fair. I expected the call to end. Instead, Nadine said, Paul wants to cancel. I don't. The wall solves a real problem for us, and it's beautiful. Thank you. I told Glenn we'll continue under one condition. I waited. Ryan has to complete the repair and demonstrate the entire sequence himself before we schedule installation. No prompting, no one stepping in. I looked through the bay doorway at Celia, who was pretending not to listen. Nadine, I didn't ask you to do that, I know. I'm not doing it for you. I need to know the person representing the work understands what he's putting in my building. For the first time, Ryan's ability to finish the project would depend entirely on him. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I pictured the 3 recessed handles, his hand reaching for the wrong one, and my body leaned forward before I could stop it. My phone buzzed 10 minutes after I hung up. Ryan, did you tell Nadine to make me demonstrate? I typed no, deleted it, then typed, she called to ask whether the design was safe. The condition was her decision. 3 dots appeared. That's convenient. I put the phone face down. It buzzed again. Dad says if we can't satisfy her by next Friday, Paul's canceling. I didn't answer. A 3rd message came through. You know I can't rebuild your whole system in a week. I picked up the phone, read the sentence twice, and wrote, then you shouldn't have put your name on it. He didn't respond. I spent the next hour repairing a split oak tabletop for one of the jobs Celia had passed me. The damage ran almost 4 feet along a glue joint. At Dad's shop, I would have used the large bar clamps without thinking. Celia's were the wrong depth, so I had to make calls from scrap and rig the pressure carefully. It took 40 minutes longer than it should have. I swore twice, pinched my finger, and discovered the goose heater could drown out profanity if it started at the right moment. There was no sweeping triumph in working for myself. Everything cost money. Sandpaper cost more than I remembered because I had never been the one buying 1 box at a time. My drill battery was older than I thought. I spent 23 minutes on the phone with an insurance agent who called Custom Furniture Arts and Crafts until I corrected him hard enough to affect his afternoon. But when the tabletop finally closed along the split, no one appeared to rename it. Dad came to the studio shortly before closing. Celia saw his truck through the front window and walked into my bay. Do you want me to tell him you're not here? He knows my car. I can tell him you're emotionally not here. I'll handle it. She nodded. I'll be 10 feet away handling a very loud orbital sander. Dad entered without knocking. He wore his shop apron over a blue button-down shirt, and there was walnut dust in the creases near his elbows. I could not remember the last time I had seen him wearing the apron on a weekday. His eyes moved around the bay, taking in my tools, the repaired sideboard, the tabletop under clamps. You set all this up fast. It's a workbench and a rental agreement. He pressed his thumb against one of the sideboard's repaired curves. Nice match, thank you. For a few seconds, we stood together as 2 woodworkers looking at good work. It would have been easier if he had started angry. He noticed the goose heater in the corner. That thing's safe? Probably not. You checked the cord? Yes, Dad. He nodded, hands in his apron pockets. Ryan told you Nadine's condition. She told me. Why'd she call you? To ask whether the wall was safe. And I said it was if built and operated correctly. His eyes narrowed. She came up with the demonstration by herself? Yes. Dad walked to the tabletop and inspected my clamping setup. Paul thinks you're the only reason we could build it. I was. That's not helpful. It's also not new information. He exhaled through his nose. We corrected the bracket. The impact knocked it out of square like you thought. Ryan told me. The new pin holds. The cable tracks. But he doesn't understand how the interlocks relate well enough to answer questions. Then he needs to learn. He is learning. Good. We don't have time for your games, Mara. Celia's sander started in the next room with perfect timing. I waited until it stopped. What game? This. Dad gestured around the bay, making everybody come to you. I haven't asked anyone to come here. You knew we'd need you. I knew you'd expect me. His face tightened. Come in tomorrow for an hour. Walk him through it. No. Don't be ridiculous. I don't work there. I'm not asking you to come back. What are you asking? 1 hour? Of what? He stared at me. Design consultation? I asked. Technical training? Safety inspection? You're his sister. That wasn't on the list. Dad took his hands out of his pockets. You want me to pay you $125 an hour, 2-hour minimum. His eyebrows went up. You made that number up. All numbers are made up. For talking to your brother. For transferring specialized knowledge about a system I designed. His mouth turned down in disbelief. You'd charge your own family. You charged the Mercers for every hour I spent building it. That is not the same thing. No, I didn't get to choose those hours. Dad paced once to the edge of the bay and back. Fine, $250. Come tomorrow. I'm not coming to the shop. Why? Because the second I walk in, somebody will hand me a tool. I'm giving you my word. Your word approved the plate. That stopped him. I took a breath. Ryan can come here. He brings the final drawings and his questions. I explain the system. I don't inspect the repair, touch the cabinet, or certify the work. Dad's expression changed from anger to something more wounded. You'd make him sit here and pay you. Yes. This is punishment. No. Punishment was working for free while my name disappeared. This is a boundary. I don't know where you picked up that word, probably from someone who was allowed to have one. He looked toward Celia's office as if she had infected me. Then he walked out. I expected the conversation to leave me feeling powerful. Instead, my hands shook when I reached for the sandpaper. Celia appeared in the doorway. 125? She asked. Too high? Too low for emergency consultation on a custom mechanical installation. He's my father. Then charge extra. I laughed despite myself. Dad did not accept the offer. At least he didn't tell me he had. Ryan arrived the next evening carrying a roll of drawings and a paper envelope. He put the envelope on my bench. What's that? $250. Dad sent you? No. Dad said paying you would encourage this. This? Ryan gestured around the bay. Whatever terrifying transformation turns you into a person with invoices. I did not touch the envelope. Do you agree to the terms? 2 hours. You explain. You don't touch the unit. And I'm not responsible for your repair. I know. If you call afterward with another question, I bill another hour. That seems hostile. It's very standard. He looked at me for a long moment. Fine. I cleared the tabletop plans from one side of the bench. Ryan spread out the final drawings. They were the version I had saved before the preview, but he had added notes in blue pencil. Some were wrong. More were right than I expected. He pointed at the door interlock. I understand what it does. I don't understand why the cable loses tension after the counter's halfway down, because the carriage changes the load angle as it moves. I know those words separately. I took out a scrapboard, 2 screws, and a length of string. I built a crude triangle to represent the frame and made him hold the string while I moved the board through its arc. What happens here? I asked. The pull moves outward, and here? The angle flattens. So if you set tension with the counter closed, it gets tighter as the counter opens. Until? He studied the sketch. Until the pivot passes center. Then it relaxes. Right. He drew the force line himself. For the next hour, he asked questions without joking. I made him explain each answer back to me. When he used the wrong term, I corrected him. When he guessed, I waited until he admitted he was guessing. At one point, he pushed both hands through his hair and said, "How did you design this in 5 weeks?" I didn't. I designed it in 4 because you moved the deadline. He looked down. I deserve that. Yes. The air between us changed, not softened, cleared. Ryan turned his pencil over several times. I knew the nameplate was wrong. I said nothing. I knew it when I ordered it. Then why? Because Dad kept talking about my signature piece. Paul called it the Ryan wall twice. The consultant asked if I had more designs. Every time someone said it, I felt like I was finally becoming the person everybody already thought I was. And where was I in that? He stared at the pencil, in the shop making it possible. The honesty hurt more than another excuse. You told yourself I didn't care about credit. You always said you hated attention. I hate selling. I don't hate existing. I know that now. You knew it Monday when I made you change the board. He nodded. I thought if the company name was on the board, the plate wouldn't matter. You thought I wouldn't find the plate until clients were already there. His silence answered. I folded my arms. Ryan swallowed. I am sorry. There was no charm in it. No coffee, no joke, no hand on my shoulder. Just 4 words he looked ashamed to need. I wanted them to repair more than they could. Why did you tell Dad I wanted the mechanism to fail? Because I was humiliated. That doesn't answer the question. He looked at me then. Because if you wanted it to fail, I didn't have to admit you were right to let me stand there. You forced the release. I know. I warned you. I know. And afterward, you still wanted me to repair it. His eyes dropped again. I didn't know how. That is not the same as being entitled to me. No. The second hour ran 15 minutes long. I didn't charge him for it, which Celia would have called a relapse. Before he rolled up the drawings, I made him operate the little string and board model until he could explain every change in tension. Then I wrote 3 words on the corner of his first page: load, lock, release. What's that? He asked. The sequence underneath the sequence. Remove the moving load before adjustments. Lock the doors before the release. Never force anything you don't understand. He traced the words with one finger. Nadine wants the demonstration Friday morning, he said. Are you ready? No. It was the first honest answer he had ever given me about the project. What are you going to do? Stay until I am. At the doorway, he paused. Tessa says I should bring the plate to you. I don't want it. She says we should melt it down and make you a trophy. That sounds like Tessa. She's really mad at me. She should be. I know. He left with the drawings under his arm. I opened the envelope after he was gone. Inside were 10 20s and 1 50, along with a receipt Ryan had written himself. Technical consultation, 2 hours. Under provider, he had written Mara Ellis. Under project, he had started to write the Ryan Ellis, transforming service wall. He had crossed out his name. The remaining words read, transforming service wall. On Friday, I arrived at the studio early and tried to work on the oak tabletop. At 9:13, my phone buzzed. Ryan had sent a video. I let it sit for 6 minutes before pressing play. The showroom appeared on my screen. No crowd this time. Nadine and Paul stood near the wall with Dad. Lou held the camera. Ryan stepped in front of the cabinet wearing work clothes. He opened the pocket doors and checked both locks with his hands. He explained the crescent grip, the center release, and the counter carriage without looking toward anyone for help. Then he brought the surface forward and down. It settled level. Nadine asked what would happen if the left door failed to lock. Ryan explained the inner lock, the safety pin, and the secondary stop. His wording wasn't elegant, but it was accurate. At the end of the video, he looked directly into the camera. Mara designed the mechanism, he said. I'm the reason the first demonstration failed. Dad's head turned sharply toward him. The video ended. A second message appeared beneath it. They approved the installation. Then another. I finally finished it. I know that doesn't make it mine. I watched the video again. The second time, I noticed Ryan's hand shake when he reached for the center release. I noticed Dad's mouth tighten after Ryan credited me. I noticed Nadine nod once, not triumphantly, just as if a fact had finally been placed where it belonged. I typed 3 different replies. I'm glad it worked. You should have said that the first time. Good. I sent the last one. Ryan responded with a thumbs up, which felt inadequate and exactly right. Anything warmer would have pretended we were finished. Celia appeared beside me holding 2 coffees. Did he pass? I handed her the phone. She watched the video without expression. At the end, she gave it back. He learns faster when you stop doing his homework. He paid for tutoring. Even better. I looked at the screen again. Dad didn't like what he said. Your father will survive 1 accurate sentence. I'm not worried he'll die. Celia handed me a coffee. You still say that like you're trying to convince the room. I went back to the oak table. The repaired joint had cured cleanly. I scraped away the glue, sanded the surface, and blended color into the pale line until it looked like an old scar instead of a fresh wound. When I finished, Celia inspected it and nodded. Invoice the full amount. I know. I saw your face. What face? The one that starts subtracting money because the work went well. I invoiced the full amount. Mom called that afternoon. Ryan says the Mercers approved the wall. They did. He also says you helped him. He hired me for 2 hours. The silence on her end had shape. He paid you? Yes. To explain your own project. To explain a mechanical system to someone responsible for installing it. He's your brother. And now he understands cable tension. Mom sighed. I don't know how to talk to you anymore. You could try talking to me without asking me to do something. I wasn't asking. You called 6 minutes after you heard the contract was safe. That's because I thought you'd be happy. I am. You don't sound happy. I'm working. There was another pause. Come to dinner Sunday, she said. I almost laughed. I made it nearly 2 whole minutes. You said without asking you to do something. Eating is not doing something. With our family, it's an endurance activity. I'll make pot roast. Dad will carve it whether it needs carving. He's consistent. I looked at the tabletop, at the sideboard waiting for final hardware, at the invoice I had sent without apology. Will Ryan be there? I thought you didn't want him there. I don't want you arranging the room so nobody has to deal with what happened. Mom was quiet. He and Tessa are coming. All right? Her breath caught slightly. All right? You'll think about it? All right, I'll come. She hung up before I could change my mind. Sunday dinner looked exactly the same and felt as if someone had shifted the house 2 inches on its foundation. Ryan and Tessa were already there when I arrived. Ryan came toward me automatically, arms opening for a hug, then stopped. Are we hugging? He asked. No. Handshake? No. He nodded. Strong start. Tessa hugged me anyway. Dad stood in the kitchen doorway holding a carving knife. You're late. It's 6:03. Dinner was 6. I see retirement has made you flexible. I'm not retired. Then I'm glad we cleared that up. Mom took my coat and looked relieved enough that I felt guilty for not arriving happier. At the table, Dad sliced the roast into pieces, thin enough to read through. Ryan passed the potatoes without being asked. Tessa told us about an auction guest who had bid against himself 3 times. Mom laughed too loudly. I concentrated on keeping gravy inside the shallow rim of my plate. No one mentioned the shop until Dad asked Ryan whether Vic had confirmed the installation truck. 7 Tuesday morning, Ryan said. The stone-faced panel needs to ride vertically. I built a rack. What kind? The kind that holds the panel vertically. Dad frowned. You use angle iron? Plywood braces and a padded channel. That can flex. It won't. Based on? Ryan put down his fork. Based on the load calculation I did with Lou. Dad looked ready to continue, then glanced at me. I drank my water. Mara would use angle iron, he said. The table went still. Ryan leaned back. Mara doesn't work there. I'm aware. Then stop making her responsible when she's in the room and invisible when she isn't. Dad's fork clicked against his plate. Mom said, the potatoes came out nice. They did, Tessa replied. Nobody else helped her. Dad looked at me. You think plywood's enough? No. Ryan made a sound of disbelief. I haven't seen the rack, I said. I'm not answering. Dad returned to his meal. Used to be a simple question. It still is. Ask Lou. For several minutes, the only sounds were silverware and Mom's wall clock. Then Ryan said, we replaced the nameplate. I kept my eyes on my plate. With what? Ellis Custom Woodworks, Dad said, which is what should have been there from the beginning. I looked up. His attention remained on the roast. Did you come to that conclusion before or after the first one became embarrassing? I asked. Mara, Mom murmured. Dad cut a potato in half. I'm saying it was a mistake. No, you're saying the new plate is correct. He looked at me then. What do you want? Nothing at dinner. Good. Ryan rubbed both hands over his face. This is going great. Tessa took another piece of roast. I've had worse Sundays. When? Ryan asked. My parents are divorced. Competitive advantage. I laughed before I could stop myself. Ryan looked at me, surprised. Then he smiled. Dad did not. After dinner, Mom trapped me at the sink with a dish towel. She washed, I dried. It was the same choreography we had performed for years, except she no longer handed me plates faster than I could stack them. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It wasn't fatal. Your father's having a hard time." I set a bowl in the cabinet. "Mom, I'm not asking you to fix it. You're standing beside me describing something broken." She closed her eyes briefly. "Fine. I'm having a hard time." I stopped drying. She scrubbed a spot on the roasting pan that had already come clean. I keep thinking if I'd said something when I saw the plate, none of this would have happened. Something would have happened later. "You don't know that." "I do." She looked at me. Was it really that bad before? The question made me angrier than denial would have. "You were there. I saw pieces. Your father leaning on you, Ryan getting praise. I told myself you were stronger, that you didn't need as much. I needed the same amount." Mom's mouth tightened. "I'm sorry." She said it to the roasting pan. I waited. She turned toward me. "I am sorry." It was not enough for 5 years. It was still more than she had ever said. "I don't know what to do with that yet," I told her. "You don't have to do anything." We finished the dishes without repairing each other. The Briar Glen installation began Tuesday. I knew because my body woke at 5:30, ready to load tools I no longer had to load. I made coffee and went to the studio early. At 7:15, Ryan sent a photograph of the plywood transport rack. It had more bracing than he described at dinner. I did not comment. At 9, he sent a picture of the service wall in the inn's dining room, still wrapped in moving blankets. At noon, nothing. By 2, I had checked my phone 11 times. Celia noticed on the 12th. "If they drop it, the sound will travel," she said. "I'm not worried. Of course not." I sanded a replacement cabinet door until the edge was visibly lower than the face, swore, and cut another one. At 5:40, Ryan sent a photograph of the installed wall. The walnut panels stretched across Briar Glen's north wall, dark and quiet beneath the old plaster ceiling. The new plate was visible inside the center cabinet. Ellis Custom Woodworks. A second photograph showed the counter open and level. Nadine stood behind it with both hands on the surface, smiling. Ryan wrote, "Nothing dropped." Lou only threatened to quit twice. I wrote, "That's below average." He answered, "I think we're healing." I did not respond, but I smiled. The inn paid the first installation invoice. The shop kept the contract. No one was ruined. That did not mean everything returned to normal. Lou called me 2 days later to ask where Dad kept replacement bearings for the edge bander. "In the green cabinet behind the compressor," I said. "Not anymore. Try the drawer under the sharpening station." He found them there. "How's it going?" I asked. He knew I didn't mean the bearings. "Loud," he said. "Your dad's back on the floor every day. Ryan keeps writing things down now, which is unsettling." "Is he doing all right?" "Define all right." "Not setting fires." "Then yes." I heard a machine start behind him. "We miss you," Lou said. The words caught me unprepared. "I miss you too. Not enough to come back, I hope." I smiled. "No, good." The sideboard's owner came to inspect it the following week. His name was Martin Hale, a quiet man with a silver beard and a habit of running his hand along the edge before he spoke. When he saw the repaired front, he stood in front of it for so long that I worried I had misunderstood the job. "My mother used to keep the good napkins in this drawer," he said finally. "We weren't allowed to touch them. They must have been exceptional napkins. They were beige." He laughed. Celia showed him the repaired hardware while I explained which sections of veneer were original and where I had made patches. Martin asked whether I took on larger work. He and his husband needed built-ins for a narrow upstairs room. "I do," I said, though I had not yet done so independently. We scheduled a measurement visit. After he left, I sat at my workbench and calculated what the project would actually cost. Materials, travel, design time, installation, insurance, a margin that did not depend on me quietly donating my evenings. The number looked enormous. I cut it by 15%, stared at it, and put the 15% back. Martin accepted the estimate the next day. It was one room, not a new company. The deposit covered materials and 2 months of bay rent. I printed the acceptance email anyway and pinned it above my bench. Dad arrived just before closing. This time he knocked on the open door frame. He looked older than he had at Sunday dinner. There was a new scrape across the back of one hand, and his shoulders sagged beneath his jacket. He noticed the printed email, the finished sideboard, and the stack of lumber Celia had delivered for Martin's built-ins. "You're busy," he said. "I'm working." He nodded. Neither of us mentioned the service wall. Dad put both hands in his jacket pockets. "I want you back," he said. The old answer rose in me before I had time to examine it. When? What happened? How bad is it? I let the questions pass. Why? Dad looked toward Celia's office. "Can we talk privately? This is my space. I can see that. Then talk." He shifted his weight. Asking for anything had always made him look annoyed, as if his need were evidence of someone else's poor planning. "The shop isn't running the way it should," he said. "You mean without me?" "I mean, we've had problems." "What problems?" "You know the kind." I waited. He frowned. "Schedules. Ordering. Design changes aren't making it to the floor. Lou's spending half his day checking Ryan's cut lists. That sounds like Ryan needs more training. He is training. Then it sounds normal." Dad took one hand from his pocket. "I'm offering you what you wanted." What did I want? A real position. Design director. Equal say on production. Your name on every project you design. The list sounded generous until I noticed every item described work I had already been doing. And pay? He named a salary higher than what I had earned, lower than what I had left at Haldane 5 years earlier. I leaned against the bench. "We can adjust it after 6 months, he added. "Of course. I'm trying here, Mara." "No, you're negotiating." "What's wrong with that?" "Nothing, if you're hiring someone." "But you came in saying you wanted me back like this was about us. It is about us. Then why did you lead with everything the shop needs?" His mouth tightened. "Because the shop is how this family survives. The shop is how this family avoids talking." Dad looked down at the floor. A curl of walnut veneer had escaped beneath the bench near his shoe. He bent, picked it up, and turned it between his fingers. "I talked to the accountant," he said. "We can restructure. Ryan handles sales and operations. You control design and production. Equal authority. Equal ownership?" The word sat between us. Dad rubbed the veneer curl flat with his thumb. "Eventually. So no. I built that business. I know. I'm not handing it over because we had one bad month. You were prepared to hand it to Ryan. I was prepared to let him run more of it. That's not what you told him." Dad looked up sharply. "What did he tell you?" "That the Briar Glen project was supposed to prove we could handle more responsibility. Except somehow my responsibility was already unlimited, and his came with the future attached. This isn't about Ryan. It has always been about Ryan. That's not fair to him." I laughed once. "Now you're worried about fairness." Dad dropped the veneer into the trash can. "Your brother agreed to this," he said. "He wants you back. Did you think that would help? He knows he can't run the shop alone. Neither can I. You wouldn't be alone. That's the point." I looked around the bay. The oak tabletop was waiting for delivery. Martin's walnut boards were stacked by thickness against the wall. Above my bench, his accepted estimate remained pinned beside a new calendar, with no one's name on it but mine. "I don't want to come back." Dad's face went still. "You're angry." "Yes." "You're making a permanent decision because you're angry." "No, I'm finally making one while angry instead of waiting until everybody else is comfortable." He paced to the edge of the bay. "You really think this is better? Renting half a room, taking whatever repair work Celia hands you? It's honest. So was our shop. Not about me." He turned. "I told everyone you were essential. You told them I was dependable." "Same thing." "No. Essential people get authority. Dependable people get called after dinner." Dad opened his mouth and closed it. I could see him searching for the correct combination of facts, money, and obligation that would return me to the place he understood. That was how he repaired things. Tighten here. Shim there. Apply pressure until the gap disappeared. I can put both your names on the company, he said. Ellis and Ellis? If that's what it takes. Which Ellis comes first? He looked offended. They're the same name. Exactly. He rubbed one hand over his face. Tell me what you want. I want you to stop asking that like the right price will put everything back. I don't know what else to offer. An apology. I told you the plate was a mistake. You told me the new plate was better. He looked toward the high window where late sun had turned the glass pale orange. I shouldn't have approved Ryan's name, he said. Why did you? He brought in the project. That isn't an answer. He was going to be the face of the line. Why? Because he's good at that. So are a lot of salespeople. You don't put their names on my designs. Dad's shoulders sagged. Because I thought the shop would be his. The honesty emptied the room. I had known. Ryan had known. Mom had probably known. But our family had carried the truth in separate containers so no one had to set it on the table. Why? I asked. Dad stared at the scarred workbench. Because he's my son. I swallowed. And I'm what? My daughter. That doesn't answer anything it did in my head. He said it so quietly I almost missed it. Dad sat in the folding chair. It creaked beneath him. My father left his plumbing business to my brother, he said. Not because Tommy was better. Tommy couldn't keep appointments and once flooded a church basement, but he was the oldest son. I thought that was stupid my whole life. And then I built something. Dad looked at his hands. Ryan had my name. He had the way with customers. I could picture him standing in front of the shop. I could picture you inside it, making sure everything worked. That sounds familiar. I thought you were stronger. Mom said the same thing. It was true. No, I was quieter about the cost. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees. After my heart attack, I was scared every day. I'd walk into that shop and forget what I came to do. My chest would hurt, and I wouldn't know if it was happening again or if I'd eaten too fast. Ryan kept telling me the business would be fine. You made it fine. I could hear the heater clicking as it cooled. You never asked what I gave up, I said. I thought you'd tell me. I did. Every time I talked about going back to design work, you showed me another schedule that couldn't survive without me. He nodded once. I made your loyalty into a tool, he said. My throat tightened. It was not an elegant apology. It was better because it sounded like something he had discovered painfully, not something he had prepared to make me cooperative. Yes, I said. He looked at me. I'm sorry. I waited for the request that usually followed. Dad looked at the lumber stacked along the wall. What are you building? The change of subject startled me. Built-ins for a room too narrow for standard cabinets. Walnut? Mostly. Painted cases, walnut fronts. He stood and examined the top board without touching it. Good grain. I picked it myself. I figured. Silence returned, but it no longer felt like a weapon. At the doorway, Dad paused. Offer stands, he said. I know. You don't have to answer now, I already did. His mouth tightened, then relaxed. Right. He left without trying again. I sat on the folding chair after he was gone and cried hard enough to irritate myself. Celia stayed in her office until I had stopped. Then she brought me a box of tissues and pretended she needed to inspect the lumber. Good grain, she said. I laughed wetly. Apparently, Martin's built-ins took 3 weeks longer than my estimate. The upstairs room had walls that bowed inward, a radiator placed exactly where it could cause the most trouble, and a staircase turned too tight for the full cabinet cases. I had to rebuild the largest unit in sections and assemble it in place. I underpriced the installation by at least 20 hours. Celia did not say I told you so. She wrote contingency on a sticky note and attached it to my monitor. Ryan texted occasionally, never about shop emergencies. He sent a photograph of Lou asleep in Dad's office chair with the caption, New Management. He sent a complaint about Mom trying to serve leftover pot roast 4 days in a row. Once he asked if I wanted coffee. I said no. He answered, "Fair." The night before the built-in installation, he arrived at the studio carrying a long paper bag. "I brought you something you don't want. That's an unusual sales pitch." He pulled out the original brass plate. The Ryan Ellis Transforming Service Wall. One corner was bent from the failed demonstration. "Why do you have that?" Dad threw it in a drawer. Tessa said I should melt it down. She suggested a trophy. She had several suggestions. Most involved fire. He laid the plate on my bench. "I don't want it," I said. "I know." "Then why bring it?" "Because I kept looking at it." He sat on the edge of the workbench. His clothes were dusty and a pencil rested behind his ear. "I used to think you had the better deal," he said. I stared at him. "Seriously, Dad trusted you with everything. He asked your opinion. If you said a job needed another week," he complained, "but he believed you. With me, he praised me in public and checked my math in private. He was going to give you the company." "I know." That made it worse. How? Because I wasn't ready, and everybody knew except the people congratulating me. I picked up the plate. It was heavier than it looked. "So you put this on the wall." I thought if everyone saw my name long enough, I'd grow into it, on top of my work. "Yes." He didn't soften the answer. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "I just don't want us to go back to the way we were. We can't." "I know. I won't take your emergency calls. I won't cover deadlines you promise. I won't do free design because Dad says family. I know. And if you ever put your name on my work again, I'll attach you to the next moving counter and let gravity handle it." He smiled faintly. "That feels fair." I turned the plate over. On the back, Ryan had scratched a new line with an engraving tool. "Mara built it. Ryan broke it. Both survived." I laughed, then immediately hated myself for laughing. "That is not an apology," I said. "No." The apology was before. He stood. At the door, he stopped. "Can we be brother and sister again?" I looked at him. The golden sun with sawdust in his hair, no jacket, no audience, waiting without confidence that I would give him what he wanted. "Maybe," I said, "but never star and backup." He nodded. "Coffee sometime?" "Ask me again." "I can do that." After he left, I set the plate face down in the bottom drawer of my workbench. The next morning, I loaded the built-in sections into Celia's van. As I closed the rear doors, my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. For once, I answered without bracing for a problem. "Hey," he said, "are you working?" "Yes, I won't keep you." He hesitated. Then he asked, "When you're done, would you let me see it?" "After the client signs off," I said. "Of course. And you call first." A small pause. "All right." He did not ask where the installation was. He did not offer the shop truck, angle iron, Lou, Ryan, or advice about the staircase. He said good luck and let me hang up. Martin's husband, David, met us at the house in socks and a sweater that looked too expensive for construction day. He had covered the staircase railing with moving blankets and placed a tray of coffee near the front door. "I was told not to help," he said. "Who told you?" "Martin, the internet, and my lower back. Excellent advice from all three." The narrow upstairs room had once been a bedroom. Martin and David wanted to use it as a library and office, but standard furniture left a useless strip of space beneath the sloped ceiling. My design wrapped the far wall with painted cases, walnut drawer fronts, adjustable shelves, and a shallow desk that folded out beneath the window. It was not mechanically ambitious. Nothing transformed into a breakfast station. No hidden counter weighed more than a person. I had designed it to fit the way two people actually used a room. Martin at the desk in the morning, David reading in the chair at night. Both of them unwilling to throw away 40 years of books just because the room was small. Celia and I carried the cabinet sections upstairs one at a time. The largest section cleared the turn by less than an inch. "I measured that," I said. "You've mentioned it 6 times, Celia replied from beneath the weight. "I'm building suspense. You're building a hernia." By noon, the cases were level and joined. Then I discovered the left face frame sat 3/16 of an inch proud because the plaster bulged behind it. At Dad's shop, I would have stayed silent until I solved it. Ryan would have asked whether we could caulk the gap. Dad would have run his hand over the wall, made a dissatisfied noise, and stood close enough to turn thought into performance. I stared at the bulge. Celia handed me a pencil. "What's the move? Pull the section, scribe the back, reinstall. That's 2 hours. I know, we priced contingency." I looked at her. She smiled. Beautiful word, isn't it? We pulled the section. Martin came upstairs while I was trimming the back edge. "Problem?" he asked. "The wall has more personality than expected. Is that expensive?" "Not for you. It's covered." He nodded. "Then I'll leave you to insult my house in private." By 6, the built-ins were installed. The paint lines met the old trim cleanly. The walnut fronts carried the darker grain from left to right without breaking. I opened the shallow desk, showed Martin the concealed cable channel, and adjusted a shelf for David's oversized art books. David stood in the doorway holding 2 glasses of wine. "This room has never looked this big," he said. "That's because your old desk was the size of a Buick," Martin told him. "It had presence. It had drawers we couldn't open." Martin ran one hand across the walnut desktop. "You understood what we needed better than we did," he said. "I thought of the first meeting, the measurements, the estimate I had nearly discounted, the extra 3 weeks, and the hours I had underpriced anyway. Next time, I'll charge more," I said. David raised his glass. "That's the spirit." They signed the completion approval at the kitchen counter. Martin gave me the final payment without asking for a family rate, a favor, or a promise about future work. I paid Celia for her installation hours before I paid myself. On Sunday afternoon, Dad called from the driveway. "I'm here. You could knock. You said call first." I meant before driving over. That wasn't clear. Some things survive transformation. I let him in. Martin and David had given me permission to show the room. Dad climbed the stairs more slowly than he would have 5 years earlier, one hand brushing the rail. He stopped in the doorway. He did not speak for long enough that I became 17 again, standing beside my first cabinet while he inspected the joints. Dad walked to the left wall and sighted down the face frames. He checked the reveal around the drawers. He opened one, closed it, then opened it again. Soft, close undermounts? Yes. Could have fit another inch of depth. Radiator pipe behind the wall. He crouched and looked under the lower case. "You built around it. I enjoy heat and plumbing." He stood, rubbing one knee. "Show me the desk." The request caught me. I released the recessed latch and lowered the writing surface. The support arms unfolded from each side and locked beneath it. I showed him the cable channel and the outlet hidden behind a removable panel. Dad pressed his weight against the outer edge. "It'll hold," I said. "I know." He stepped back and looked at the full wall. "This is good work. Thank you. Very good." The old part of me waited for him to say it would be good for the shop, that Ryan could sell 10 of them, that I should come back and build a line. Dad ran his fingers over the walnut grain. "You match the fronts from one board, 2 boards from the same flitch." He nodded. I wouldn't have seen the seam. That was as close to awe as my father knew how to get. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Martin appeared with a tray of coffee. "You must be Mara's father," he said. "Glenn Ellis." Martin handed him a cup. "You taught her?" Dad looked at me. "I started her," he said. "She taught herself the rest." I stared into my coffee so neither man would see my face. On the drive back to the studio, Dad followed in his truck. I assumed he had taken the same route out of habit until he pulled into the lot behind me. "You need something?" I asked. He got out but left the truck door open. I talked to Ryan about the company. "All right. I'm not putting both names on it. That's probably good. Ellis, Ellis & Ellis sounds like a firm that loses tax cases." His mouth twitched. "I'm keeping ownership for now," he said. "He'll manage sales. Lou's taking over more floor scheduling. We're hiring a part-time bookkeeper." "You're hiring?" "I hear people do that when there's more work than employees." Strange concept. I should have done it years ago. Yes. Dad looked at the studio windows. If we have design work that fits you, can I ask for a quote? The question was careful. Not can you help, not we need you. A quote. You can ask, and you can say no. Yes. He nodded as though memorizing a machine sequence. Load, lock, release, I said. What? Nothing. He closed the truck door. Offer still stands, he said. About coming back. My answer still stands. I know. This time, he left without looking wounded by it. Ryan asked me for coffee again the following week. I said yes. We met at a diner halfway between the shop and Celia's studio. He arrived before me and was drinking coffee from a thick white mug, a pencil still behind his ear. You know that's there? I asked. He touched the pencil. Occupational costume. You used to have a blazer. This is cheaper. He told me the Mercers had used the service wall for their first event. One employee opened and closed it without trouble. Paul had already asked about a second unit, and Ryan had told him they would estimate it after reviewing the first installation for 3 months. You refused immediate revenue, I asked. I nearly died. Dad nearly killed me. But he agreed. Ryan stirred sugar into his coffee. I told Paul we weren't promising a deadline until production signed off. I smiled. Lou make you say that? Lou made me write it down and repeat it. The waitress brought pie we had not ordered because Ryan had apparently told her we were celebrating surviving each other. I ate half. We did not talk about forgiveness. He complained about Dad correcting his estimates. I told him Dad corrected everyone's estimates. Ryan said not the same way, and I told him I knew. When the check came, he reached for it. We split it, I said. It's coffee and pie. We split it. He did not argue. Mom changed more slowly, which I trusted more. She still invited me to dinner by mentioning Dad's blood pressure twice in the first month. When I pointed it out, she denied it, then called back and admitted I was right. She stopped asking me to bring side dishes after I told her I wanted to arrive as a guest sometimes. The first Sunday, I came empty-handed. She looked anxiously at the bare counter where my food should have been. Then Tessa arrived with rolls. Ryan brought a salad he had clearly purchased pre-assembled, and dinner occurred anyway. At the table, Dad praised Ryan for landing a restaurant renovation. Ryan said Mara would hate the banquette layout. Dad looked at me. You seen it? No. He opened his mouth, probably to describe the problem. Then he closed it. Never mind, he said. We'll handle it tomorrow. It was a tiny silence. No one applauded. Mom passed the potatoes. I loved them for letting it remain tiny. Work in Celia's Bay became steadier without becoming easy. Martin referred me to a friend. The replacement door job led to a laundry room cabinet. I spent entire afternoons on estimates that went nowhere. One client told me my price was outrageous, hired someone cheaper, then emailed 6 weeks later asking me to repair what they had installed. I quoted the repair without lowering my rate. Celia raised my rent when I began using more storage. I complained, she showed me the square footage, and I paid it. The damaged brass plate stayed face down in my bottom drawer. Sometimes I found it while looking for hardware. I never displayed it, melted it, or threw it away. It belonged to a version of us that had existed, and hiding the evidence felt too much like Mom's kind of peace. Dad came by the studio occasionally. He always called first, though sometimes from the parking lot. He referred 2 clients and did not tell them to expect a discount. When Ellis Custom Woodworks needed drawings for an unusually tight pantry, he requested an estimate by email. I was too busy and declined. The next Sunday, he complained through most of dinner that outside designers were unreliable. They said no, I reminded him. That's unreliable. That's scheduling. He scowled at his plate. Ryan smiled into his potatoes. A few months after the Briar Glen installation, Dad arrived at my bay carrying a walnut drawer. One side of the box had separated, and the brass latch on the front hung loose. He set it on my workbench. My body reacted before my mind did. I turned the drawer over, found the failed joint, and reached toward the clamp rack. Dad cleared his throat. I stopped. He looked at the drawer, then at me. I have a cabinet at home that's been sticking, he said. Your mother pulled too hard. I'm sure that's the full story. She was aggressive. Furniture can sense fear. His mouth twitched, but he did not push the drawer toward me. What would you charge to repair it? The question settled into the space between us. I inspected the split, tested the latch, and found a crack near the rear dovetail. The box needs to come apart. I'll reglue it, reinforce the crack, and reset the latch. 180. Dad's eyebrows rose. It's walnut. It's one drawer. You can shop around. He ran a thumb along the loose joint. When can you do it? End of next week. Your mother's using a cardboard box. Cardboard's versatile. Dad nodded. End of next week. I opened my invoice book and wrote the estimate. When I handed it to him, he read every line. Then he took out his wallet and placed $90 on the bench. Half deposit, he said. That's right. He did not ask me to move it up. He did not mention his blood pressure, Mom's cardboard box, or everything he had taught me. He took the receipt and waited while I wrote his name on a tag. I tied the tag to the brass latch and carried the drawer to the work shelf. Not my bench, not my hands, not yet. Dad watched me place it behind 2 other jobs. Then he picked up his keys. Call when it's ready? He asked. I will. He nodded and walked toward the door. Dad. He turned. Thanks for asking. He looked at the tagged drawer on the shelf, then back at me. I'm learning, he said. I know. The door closed behind him. I returned to the cabinet in front of me, and his drawer waited where I had chosen to put it.